Honorable, I'll tell you, George Mitalikas is with us.
Thank you.
And then Honorable, I'm starting with the NCOP colleague. I want to show the chairperson I know.
Yes.
Honorable Kenny Mutama is here with us. Honorable Sam Zandamela is with us. Honorable Mpeka.
It's here in Golden Garden. We are having a problem, but
I'm here. No, don't talk for me. I'm here. I'm here.
The minister is here. Is the minister who's saying she's here?
Yes, no, not here. Yet.
The minister, she's
I'm
here. I'm going to acknowledge you, Minister.
Okay, thank you.
I've already acknowledged Honorable Msamai. Honorable Ngita is here. I've already mentioned Sam Zandamela. And then Honorable Saida Sheikh is also here. These are the colleagues that I've seen from the NCOP Honorable Chair. And then the colleagues from the NA.
Let me tell you, I also know them.
Oh, do that. Let's see.
I see Honorable Mtambi. I see Honorable Opperman. Wow. I see Honorable Keza. I see Honorable Becky Hatebe. I see Honorable Groenewald. I see Honorable Kaba. And I see Honorable Hengiwe. Who else?
Brink. You have left Honorable and Hussein.
Yeah, and Hussein is here. Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'll never miss that. I think we must start with the meeting. Honorable members of Parliament, welcome to...
Who's calling the chair?
Yes, Honorable Bart, Chair.
Yes.
I'm here.
Oh,
Honorable.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, okay.
Martha, yeah.
We must get used to you.
Yeah, from the NCOP.
Our apologies.
You forget me. You forget me. Okay.
Yes, let me take this opportunity to heartily welcome all members of Parliament who are present in this meeting. Special word of welcome to the Honorable Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, as well as her deputies. They are both here, Honorable Pakstow, as well as Honorable Obed Bapela. We're happy that Honorable Bapela is here, and after himself isolated himself, he tested, the result came out negative, and speedily he's hitting the ground running, and he's with us in this meeting. You are all heartily welcome to this important meeting. This meeting is a continuation of what we discussed last week, when which we were supposed to receive the presentations of the adjusted budget from the Department of Cooperative Governance, as well as from MISA and Traditional Affairs. Because at the time that we met last week, the minister was not there. She was highly held up in some important meetings of the National Command Council that we understood. Unfortunately, as I explained, Honorable Obed Bapela was not part of the meeting because of the circumstances that I've already explained. And Honorable Tau had an emergency, but he was part of the meeting, but he wasn't in a position where in which he could properly participate in a meaningful way. The DG was not present. She submitted the apology indicating that she was not going to attend the meeting. The meeting was not satisfied with the explanation from the side of the DG because no clear-cut reasons were provided by the DG to the meeting as to why she was not here. And on those bases, we decided as the joint committee that we must postpone this engagement for today. And subsequent to that, there's been an engagement with the DG so that she's part of this particular meeting. From where we are, we understand. We have a new DG. She's in the process of understanding more and better the processes of Parliament and the importance of such meetings. And it is in that context that we are going to proceed without reopening this particular matter again. I think it suffices. We are all in this together. We are in the learning curve together. We're working together, and we are propelled by a spirit of resolving problems that must help us to move forward and help us to deal with the business of the day. As I indicated, for the purpose of this meeting, we are going to receive a report from the minister and her team on the Department of Cooperative Governance, because we have dealt, as I indicated, with the component of the Traditional Affairs and MISA. We, as I indicated, we postponed the component of the Cooperative Affairs. Honorable Minister, we received your presentation last week. We were quite prepared for the presentation, but because of the postponement, we were afforded again some days, about almost a week, to further interrogate and internalize the presentation. Without any restrictions, I'm going to propose that you give us the total summary of the presentation that is already in the possession of honorable members, and after that we are going to fruitfully engage with such a presentation. As members understand, for the purpose of today, we're dealing with the budget adjustment, because a total budget of the MTF cycle was presented to us in May as the joint committee. We interrogated that particular budget, we adopted it, we sent it to respective parliaments. Where we are, we understand what the department told us in May about its intentions for this financial year and what is it that we need to do. And as we all understand, the basis of this adjustment budget, it is where there are restrictions and there are cuts that the departments are expected to make in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is with that understanding that we are going to engage with the presentation. Now, as I said, the presentation is before us, and we are going to move along those lines. We have just informally checked who is present, both from the National Assembly and members of the NCOP. We are sufficiently present to this meeting. We form a quorum, and that enables us to proceed with the meeting, because this meeting forms a quorum. It is a properly constituted meeting of Parliament where we are going to deal with the issues as I've just explained. Without further ado, over to you, Honorable Minister. You will guide us in terms of how we are going to proceed forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair of the Select Committee and the Chair of the Portfolio Committee and all the honorable members, the DMs, and the colleagues from COGTA. I think in order to save time, I will just ask the DG to do the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Over to you, DG.
Good evening to the Chairperson of the Select Committee, and good evening to the Honourable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, and to Minister and the Deputy Ministers, and to all the Portfolio Committee members that are present. Thank you for the opportunity to actually conduct the presentation. If I could please then ask if the Secretariat could flight the presentation for us. If they could share it, please. Thank you. If we can put it into, yes. Okay, so we are here from the department to actually present on the revised or the special adjustment allocations for the department. If we could then also, during this process, go through our strategic areas of focus and some of the changes that we've also had to our strategic plan, and just looking at our revised annual performance plan together with our 2020 special adjustment budgets. If we could move to the next slide. So the first area we'll focus on is the addendum to the revised COGTA 2020-2021 annual performance plan, and then of course the 2020 special adjustment budgets. So the department has revised its 2020-2025 strategic plan, which still has six key outcomes. We've also then revised our 2021 APP to make provision to our COVID-19 response, and the adjusted budget to actually cater for those targets that are likely not to be achieved in our first quarter of the financial year, with the carryover implications for the subsequent quarters of this year. The department has also responded to the government strategy on gender-based violence, and these initiatives will be cascaded down to support the municipalities through our district development model. So due to the number of indicators that had already been added to our initial projects, some of them we've also had to then just reassign to our operational plans. If we could move to the next slide. So this is a summary of all our indicators that we have per program. We have 6 programs in the department, and of those 6 programs, we have 33 of those, and of course the percentages that actually make up each of those programs. And you can see that the greatest percentage is within administration, followed by institutional development. If we could move to the next slide, please. So just to recap on the DCOG strategic plan outcomes, I won't go through each one in its detail, but really just at a high level to indicate that we need to ensure that our cooperative governance systems do drive the implementation of the DDM, that we have intergovernment relations through DDM that are effective, and that our integrated planning and service delivery are important in terms of one of our outcomes, and just also an improved municipal financial viability, and having sustained good municipal governance, and then just an improved disaster management system. If we can move to the next slide, please. And maybe just to mention that these are all still relevant for the next 5-year medium-term plan. So the main areas of focus and the changes that we've made to the APP are the COVID-19 response to support municipalities through our reprioritization of municipal grants and the disaster management response. Also just the disaster management grant funding review to ensure that the disaster grants are more responsive. Just also with regards to COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 economic recovery for local government, which has been aligned to the DDM and the One plans, and to support the municipalities in preparation for the 2021 local government elections, to ensure that we've established our CWP cooperatives through the agrarian reform, And just on our expenditure on internal COVID-19 response. And then the other area is also the development of our funding model for local government, and then just championing of the National Responsible Citizenry campaign. That's to be done to municipalities to improve culture. So the revised DCOG APP is as follows. If we could move to the next slide. Okay, so the first one under Program 1 in Administration was Indicator 1.6 that references the automation of the 4 business processes, and the rationale for us making the change here was to actually provide continuation of operations through our ICT during the lockdown. So we had to enhance our MS Teams and our Microsoft 365 IT. Sorry about that. Then on the next indicator, which is 1.7, we had to look at the percentage that we spend on the COVID-19 business continuity plan, and we had to ensure that we have the appropriate resources allocated to mitigate against our COVID-19 infections. So some continued indicators here are indicator 1.1 around the qualified audit outcome for 2019 and 2020. And then the indicator 1.2, where we had to look at the 100% of suppliers needed to be paid within 30 days. And 1.3, where we had to look at our percentage alignment of SMS performance agreements to annual targets. And 1.4, the improvement of the organizational performance from 83% to 85%. And 1.5, 100% alignment of the organizational structure to strategy. So the projects here are still relevant, and we will be implementing these with the purpose of actually improving our internal resources and making sure that we utilize these more appropriately, so we can also improve the culture of the individuals and the organizational performance specifically around our audit outcomes. On the next program, the Regional and Urban Development and Legislative Support, there were a few indicators, and in some of these indicators we had to obviously review them, and we've got the rationale as to why we believe these should be either remain or be completely reviewed. So indicator 2.5 on the Economic Recovery Plan for the 52 districts and sites. So despite it being part of our One Plan initiative, it is also critical, was also critical for us to actually elevate it to the APP level to respond to the local economic crisis now, post-COVID-19. On the other indicators under 1, 2, 3, and 4, we've had to revise our UDF implementation plan, which has now also concluded and will be processed through cabinet, and the new targets will be included from Q2 onwards. And to also further support our response to curb gender violence and femicide, we've also then made sure, that we also include some new targets into this one as per the request that had arrived from the Department of Gender and so on. If we can then move to the next slide. Could we please move to the next slide? Under Program 3, there were quite a few indicators here that we also reviewed, specifically indicators 3.1, 3.3, and 3.5 and 3.6. Here, really, we were to ensure that government is well prepared within this new normal, which is in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically around the local government elections. And then just under the umbrella of rethinking municipal finance, we plan to work with the National Treasury to actually stabilize our municipal finances from a revenue and from an expenditure perspective. And then just with regards to 3.5, we also want to build financially viable municipalities and to contribute towards an improved audit outcome. And then just on 3.6, we also thought that we would like to promote and encourage the culture of payment for services under the theme Reigniting the Culture of Active and Responsive Citizenry. So under the indicator 3.2, the draft integrated local government capacity building strategy, and under 3.7, just looking at the smart cities framework, these also still remain relevant and does not require any any changes. And then just with regards to 3.4, the report on the implementation of actions to address issues raised by the AG. The rationale here is that we continue to report with the indicator taking into account our operational plan, and then also just making sure that the governance structures that we have are indeed then functioning. If we could move to the next slide, please. Okay, under the National Program 4, which is the National Disaster Management Center, there were two new indicators, which are 4.3 and 4.5. And the one is the disaster grant funding expenditure and performance monitored and reported. And the rationale for including this one was to ensure closer monitoring of the allocated provincial relief, municipal relief, and municipal disaster recovery grants. The second one is the number of district disaster management centers within COVID-19 responsive risk reduction strategy. So here the rationale was that we have a joint effort to reduce the risks related to COVID in line with the disaster management regulations as part of the framework. Then just in terms of the other indicators that will be continued are 4.1 to 4.4, and we believe that those are all remain relevant. Some of the operational plan indicators we do with regards to the COVID-19 reporting coordinated through the Disaster Operations Center dashboard. In the new operational plan, we also want to ensure that we have monitoring and analysis of reports through this dashboard, and we ensure that this is then done actively every week. And this report is then also discussed with our deputy ministers, and we also give an input and update to our minister. Just with regards to the drafting of the white paper on fire services, this has been finalized, and then we've got 9 selected districts and metros with increased access to impact based on early warning services for identified hazards. So these we've also then moved to the operational plan. From Program 5 on local government support and interventions management, the new indicator here is is in 5.1, where the percentage of mixed spend on sanitization and urgent repairs and maintenance of water and sanitation infrastructure as being part of COVID-19 interventions is new. And the rationale here is we want to be able to monitor expenditure against the MIG allocations for the COVID response. The other 3 indicators, we continue with these with the same rationale that we've had before, including the operational plan indicator and the rationale around that. We have moved the section 154 indicator to our operational plan. In program 6, we only have indicators that we have continued with, because we believe that all these indicators still remain relevant, and we will continue with these as per the initial plan. Okay, with regards to the special adjustment budget, you will see that the initial amount that we had received against our main appropriation was 96,233,000. that our adjustment, our total special adjustment on this appropriation was 10.9 billion, which means that the overall adjusted appropriation then increased to 107 billion. What then also becomes important here is that through the process of the utilization of unspent funds and shifts environments, we've had to look at all programs, and in order to do that, some of our funding then, we had to make sure that there was either a reallocation or a reprioritization with the funding that we currently have, and we had to do that for 16.9 billion. And if you look at the special adjustment budget, it also includes amounts that have been suspended and added, and with this, we've had a net amount of 10.94 billion allocated to the department. If you could go to the next slide. Okay, and then under the economic classifications, you will see that our current payments are, our current voted appropriation is sitting at 4.9 billion. There were no changes made to the compensation of employees adjustment. However, we did have an adjustment under our current payments with the total net effect of 28 million being taken from the department. So if you look at our total transfers and subsidies from the main vote, it was at 91 billion. With the total special adjustment appropriation of the 10.9 billion, we have now been adjusted to 102 billion. And I've explained the totals, what they were previously in the previous slide. So we can move to the next one. Okay, so what this slide actually does, it gives us an additional extrapolation of what the special adjustment allocations are per program. I won't necessarily go into the details of each of them because they are actually here. Safe to go to the next slide. No, you've skipped a slide. If you could go one back. Okay, maybe I should just then read it off my presentation. It's just to say that our original budget was sitting at 96 billion. And of course, now with the special adjustment of the 10.9 billion, we are now up to 107 billion, 188,495 rands. On the special adjustment allocations and how these would then be related to the transfers, you can see that there are a number of entities to which the department has to transfer funds. And you can see that our total transfer of funds are sitting at 91 billion. And the special adjustments that were done based on the process through National Treasury have amounted to 9.2 billion and resulting in an overall adjustment budget of 102,254,897 rands. If I could move to the next slide. Oh, sorry, if I could go back one slide. I think the important thing to note as well in this slide is the 20 billion that was actually pronounced by the President for municipalities to provide for emergency water supply, increased sanitation, public transport and facilities. And so based on the 2020 special adjustments, the 11 billion in addition was then provided through the government equitable share, and the remainder of the 9 billion is was also repurposed, through the existing division of the Revenue Acts grant, and it has also been allocated to all the municipalities. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DG, for the presentation. I think it was quite clear. What I'm just picking up from this presentation is that we have an additional funding of about 11 billion rands. That is a difference between May and now for the purpose of COVID-19, which is quite good to support these endeavors. Honorable members, over to you. Or maybe before that, Honorable Minister, are you okay? Maybe you want to add 1 or 2 points after this?
So I'll come in to respond to some of the members' issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, over to you. Let me take hands. Just indicate your names so that I know all of you who want to ask questions and make comments.
Brink, please.
Hussein.
Brink.
Hussein.
Khalib.
Hussein. Khalib.
Zandamela.
Zandi.
Teza.
Teza. Yes, noted.
Thank you.
Who?
Crow.
Or Crow, Honorable Crow. Is that all? Yes. In our first round, let's start. Honorable Brink. Yeah, it's okay. I'll stop at Crow, then I'll take some hands after that. Honorable Brink.
Thanks very much, Chair. We rushed through the last budgetary process with the knowledge that COVID would affect all of the figures in the plans fundamentally. And so this is an opportunity for us to ask some of the serious questions that we didn't drill into before, beyond just the adjustments. My first question relates to the information on slide 10 that refers to the district development model and the drafting of one plans for the pilot project. And I've got 3 questions related to the district development model. The first is there any clearer definition than what has been given to us thus far about what one plans will involve and how it will affect the planning and the budgeting processes of municipalities? Is there a clearer idea, especially given the experiences of the model, because this thing has been modeled in 4 municipalities since last year? And that's the second question. What sort of diagnostic report or information of any kind has been published or is available for the committee and for the public on the lessons learned by the government in implementing the district development model in places like the Waterberg district and OR Tambo? And how has that information informed plans for drafting so-called one plans and one budgets, and indeed the validation of the entire concept? The last question relating to the district development model is, if we have a clearer idea of what this involves, does the Department of Cooperative Governance in fact have the capacity to implement it? So we're glad that there's a new DG and she's finding her feet, but it is a department with serious institutional problems of its own that finds it very difficult to answer questions when they are placed to the minister in good time, and where we've seen delays in interventions under Section 139, as well as a number of failures. So capacity is an important issue that the department has to answer in whatever concept or whatever plan it implements, not least the district development model. Chair, then slide 14 refers to a redesigned model for the community works program. Now, we know such a redesign is very, very necessary because the community works program is the single largest source of irregular, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure in the department for a number of years. It has been the direct and main cause of 2 back-to-back audit disclaimers. The whole way, the way the thing is put together, the way it duplicates the existing EPWP program under Public Works is a major issue. Even the minister has conceded that some of the work being done by under the auspices of these non-profit organizations mean very little in terms of imparting real marketable skills to people in the workplace. So what would this redesign look like? Can we have a hint? The presentation itself only refers to a redesign model, but there isn't much detail. I think it's important that we be given more. My final question, you alluded to the stimulus package that was announced by the president. I just want to be very clear. The 20 million is no longer 20 million. If I understand the explanation correctly, the 20 million is 11 million. Maybe we can just get clarity on that. And does the minister and the department think that 11 million is sufficient to help weather this lockdown and COVID storm that we have to help municipalities with? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Hussein.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Please forgive me for not using the video feed. I'm not sure about my network connection, and I just beg your indulgence there, please. Chair, I just have 2 issues that I want to deal with. There are a couple of other comments that I would have liked to make, but I want to just reduce my comments just to 2 very important issues so that I don't dilute the importance of it. Chairperson, I think that in the last few weeks or so, and we have experienced this in our portfolio committee as well, is the amount of questionable expenditure that is starting to emerge in municipalities across our country. Just a few days ago, our portfolio committee engaged with the OR Tambo municipality around some invoices that they received to the tune of about 4.8 million rand for door-to-door education activities on COVID-19. But of course, that is only just one example. There's so many examples that are emerging every single day around questionable expenditure for COVID-19. And notwithstanding increased allocation to fight COVID-19, which I think all of us must be grateful for, we are equally concerned, Chair, about the manner in which that money is being spent and the opportunity that is being created for corrupt officials or politicians or businessmen included to fleece the state coffers for their own personal benefit. So having said that, Chair, I want to just point to the indicator 4.3 that talks about closer monitoring of relief expenditure. And I take it that that indicator means that there would be much more focus on the manner in which relief expenditure is being procured. I can give you, Chairperson, 10 examples as I'm speaking to you now of some very questionable expenditure by municipalities and provinces, paying 2,500 rand for a single thermometer that doesn't even have batteries, for example, and there's a whole list of them. And this is extremely concerning, Chair. I think all of us were excited and grateful when President Ramaphosa announced the 500 billion rand relief package, a part of which was being allocated to provinces and municipalities to fight COVID-19 in our country. But with that came some level of skepticism from many South Africans, and the evidence is starting to reach the public now on how municipalities, and not all of them, may I add, some municipalities are using that money for very questionable means. So my question to the department, to the minister, to the DG is, can you give us please some level of assurance that you are going to be putting extra effort to ensure that municipalities are spending that money in the manner in which it was intended to originally. There is this provision that the municipalities must report the emergency expenditure to Treasury, but I want to ask the Minister for her intervention here, in that I'm afraid I don't think that's good enough. Although the intention was good, I think that the problem we sit with is that although municipalities report that expenditure, by the time we discover that that expenditure was questionable, the money is already gone. So perhaps there must be further fail-safe measures and more preventative measures being implemented, where municipalities are spending emergency funding, but it has to get some sort of proper approval from Treasury or from the department. There has to be a stop somehow, and for us to make it as difficult as possible for some of these crooks in municipalities who are using the hard-earned money to fleece and line their own pockets. So if the Minister or the DG can please give us some assurance that they are going to make as much effort as possible to ensure that that money is well spent. Chair, the second point I want to make is the issue around the CWP program. I see there's now another 4 billion rand allocation to the CWP program, and I have consistently spoke out against this, given the poor value for money that we are getting from that particular program. And I think the department is well aware of it. The Minister was very open and honest with us on the previous occasion about the CWP program and all of the problems that are in that program. It's money that we are throwing down the drain there. We're not getting much value for our expenditure there. And I want to hear from the DG and the Minister, notwithstanding the assurance that they've given us, what more are you going to do to make sure that we get value for money? 4 billion rand is an enormous amount of money that could have been used much better in other programs. So I'd like to get their comment on that, on the CWP program and the expenditure that's been allocated to that. Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Honorable Hussein.
I'll listen
Honorable
on the radio.
Kalipi. Honorable, thank you, Kalipi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks very much for the presentation from the DG. Chairperson, let me just say that I will also come on the next round because this is very interesting. I just want to get a clarity, as other colleagues have also mentioned. It was announced by the President that early when the COVID-19 started, although I don't remember exactly date, but he announced the 20 billion. So if the department can also be very, very, very clear on where do we locate the 20 billion, because this adjustment budget now is talking about other billions, not focusing on these 20 billions. We must be told that this committee, if is an addition from that announcement that was made by the President, or what happened to the 20 billion, so we can also follow as members of this portfolio committee. Chairperson, I'll just close my camera because of the signal.
Okay.
Chairperson, I just want to get a clear response from the DG on introduction, when she said that the department has also responded to the government strategy on gender-based violence, and this initiative will be cascaded down the support provided to municipalities through the district development model. As one of my colleagues have suggested that, according to our understanding in this committee of COGTA, the district development model is in the early stage. So therefore, if the department is also responded to the very serious gender-based violence that is taking place in the country, and they just mention in passing, without giving this committee a very clear reporting line in order for us to understand, and also just to have an interest, because all of us sitting here, Chairperson, we do want to fight gender-based violence. So now, if our department is also responding to the gender-based violence, they must tell us in details what is the plan of the department in this regard. I also see that it's featuring on program 2 because it's covered in the introduction, and they also talk about it on the program 2. So as well in the program 2 is not clear. And I just want to understand the rethinking municipal finance, especially, Chairperson, the role of the department when it comes to the finance of the municipalities. And they also talks about the reprioritization of municipal finance. And all of us sitting here, we do know that when it comes to the municipalities in the country, that's where the corruption is taking place. And that's where the service delivery must take place and is not taking place. So if the department have that kind of a plan of a program of rethinking municipal finance, I just want to get a much clearer response to the department, is also to question the role of the department, because it seems as if those municipalities, they do as they like, as if there's no department. On program 4, Chairperson, they talk about 10 municipalities prioritized. I just want to get those 10 municipalities and how do they get prioritized out of 257 municipalities in South Africa, if they can share with us as well. On the relief grants, Chair, which is also a feature on program 4, if also they can also cover that with how now during COVID, how is that grant going to work for the benefit of our people. On the disaster management as well, on program 4, if they can share with us, because after this meeting, we as the portfolio committee, we also engage with municipalities, and we don't even get a sense of how is the municipalities' plan to make sure that the disaster funding is rearranged and who is benefiting in terms of the disaster funding. If you go to various municipalities, they don't even give you the sense of how our people who if affected by COVID-19, there's no clear plan. So there's no relief at a municipal level. There's no policy that talks about it. If I can make an example, the issue of water in many municipalities, when you inquire on behalf of the people to say this one can't afford, there is so much bill. And if I remember very well, Chairperson, in this committee, we raised those concerns to ask the plans from the municipalities. But how are they going to make sure that they, during the lockdown, after the lockdown, they are not going to serve our people with huge bills? And it's happening now in different municipalities. Our people are receiving huge bills that were not communicated. One understands that it was lockdown, there was no staff, workers that were supposed to take those bills to people. But in the absence of any communications, and when those people, they go to the municipalities to say that I'm affected by COVID-19, I'm seeking a relief, well, all officials within the department, they does not know. They told you about the policy that is existing to say make an arrangement of 50% without interest, or make an arrangement of 25% with increase. When you go to the political leadership of municipalities, no one wants to come clear in terms of the COVID-19. So with this grant now, with this adjustment budget, which means our department have got, that will talk direct to the municipalities, can we just get a clear understanding, how is the department coordinating with municipalities to make sure that people who are suffering during COVID-19 are going to benefit? Because no one is prepared to talk to them, to tell them how is this thing structured. The last one is the one that Honorable Hussein have touched on the CWP. Now we are told that there's a response plan. As far as I remember, Chairperson, this committee is still waiting because last time DDG, who's responsible for CWP, we said to him, go and come back with a clear plan, because here we want to know what happened after we raised some concerns in terms of the role of the NGOs and the role of corruption that took place around the CWP. Now we are told in the presentation that the minister have also is involved in terms of the work of the CWP without being taken with confidence to say how did they resolve that those concerns that we raised here? Now we are told that there are 250,000, and we're still awaiting for the report to that regard. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Kalipi. Honorable Zandamela.
No, thank you, Chair. Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
No, thanks, Chair. My first question, actually, they've also touched on it, but yes, we would like to get a clear explanation, Chairperson, when it comes to this district development model, when it comes to gender-based violence, so that we can be able to advise people when they need assistance properly. So if you can get just clarity on that one. And then the second one will be on slide 7. What kind of support are they giving municipalities for 2021 local government election? And please, if they can just explain the money that has been also allocated with regard to 2021 local government election. And also on another one, Chairperson, on slide 18, there's also an allocation to the municipality demarcation board. Can they also please give clarity on that one? And the last one, Chairperson, I would like to know if is there any measures. I know the colleagues have also touched on that. Is there any measures in place on this grant that was introduced by the president? The 20, I don't know, just said it looks like it's now 11 billion. And is there any measures in place to monitor the allocation to municipalities, especially those municipalities who are under administration? Thank you, Chair. Knowing municipalities when it comes to money. If you can just get clarity, what are the measures there? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Kaza.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just going to switch off my camera due to glitches, network glitches here. Mine will be very quick. Will relate to the monitoring. Once again, as Honorable Zandamela, the 11 billion. Are there measures in place to actually monitor when that the remaining 11 billion given to municipalities who have a poor track record? Municipalities like Engqushwa local municipalities who are going through drought since March this year. A municipality that is notably under the Amatole district municipalities, and with the communities having shot there and arrested during COVID-19 at a situation that should have been prevented by that municipality. So what monitoring systems is in place to actually monitor those monies that will be allocated there in those municipalities such as those? Second question relates to again the impact of the process of Section 139C in municipalities such as Mamusa municipalities. How effective are these interventions in municipalities, and what impact if these monies are not thoroughly allocated and monitored? What impact is it going to do to remedy those municipalities out of that are out of Section 139C, the dissolution? The last one again relates to the CWP in Nkangala and Northwest. Just recently, last month, participants were not paid in those two, in Northwest and Nkangala. And is there a monitoring system? Chair, I'm sorry, the my questions will relate to monitoring, because we need to know if there is a monitoring system to make sure that participants are paid the little and meager salaries that they are getting in terms of the allocations of funds. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Cole. Honorable Cole.
Okay, so yes, thank you, Chairperson. And I'm also welcoming the presentation by the DG and also greeting our Honorable Minister. Chairperson, my question will be on the allocation of 20 billions. That how are they going to allocate billions to each municipalities? And then maybe how much are they going to allocate for district municipalities and the metro municipalities? Because if you look, let me make an example in other municipalities. We have been experiencing a lot of problems of inefficiency of our officials. How is it that we are going to overcome that? And my another question is the issue of the 11 billion. Is there any strategic measures on how are you going to allocate additional funds of 11 billion? And however, do you have any monitoring and evaluation methodology that needs also to develop a matrix that enables us to monitor the impact of our programs? Because if we don't have that, sometimes we experience a serious problem. Can't we also say the monitoring and evaluation department that they should also be part of making sure that even if we will be having the officials that are writing the report, but the officials should also take their report to the monitoring and evaluation department, because sometimes the officials cannot monitor themselves, but the monitoring and evaluation department should also take the responsibilities of making sure that they monitor all those funds that our president has pronounced that they are going to allocate it to our people. And then also the question of also another question is that do we have any strategic guiding plans for each municipalities of how are they going to use their funds? Because sometimes we'll be giving them the funds, but at the end of the day, they don't know how are they going to use them. That's why I also emphasize the issue of monitoring and evaluation, that they should also be part of the responsibilities, making sure that even if when the officials are going to compile the report, the monitoring and evaluation also, they should also compile their report. Then on the gender-based violence, I think it should also be our priority number one of what is it that you are going to do in making sure that we are there and making sure that all these negative things that are happening, and then we stop them. I thank you, Chairperson.
All right, thank you very much. We're doing quite well. We continue with questions. Any other hands?
Hey, Kaba, Chair.
Kaba, yes. It's only Kaba.
Honorable Ender, like to ask a question.
Honorable
Ender, like to ask a question.
Karim Visser. Who else?
Hendricks. Hendricks.
Hendricks.
Chair, Sileku, please.
Oh, Sileku. I'm closing. Yes, I'm closing with Sileku. Honorable Kaba.
Are you closing in the absence of hands or?
Yeah, yes, any other one who asks questions will make follow-ups. I'll open a window for follow-up questions thereafter. But these are the last hands before I give over to the minister and the DG and the DMs to respond.
Oh.
Over to Honorable
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair. Let me greet the Honorable Minister and the Honorable Chairpersons and Deputy Ministers. Hello?
No.
Hello?
There is someone who's interrupting us. Continue. If there is any need to open, I will do so at the end. But you are on the platform, Honorable Kaba.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I was also saying, let me greet our Minister of Cooperative Governance, and two co-chairpersons. And Chairperson, my question is that, as we know, since the lockdown was started at March, all municipality offices are closed. Were closed that day. Now, what will happen to the poor people when the lockdown maybe come down, maybe it's level 1 or level 2? Now the offices are open. What will happen about the bills? As the department says, they are assisting municipalities. What did they will assist the municipalities to clear the owing of the poor people that they were deprived the right to go and pay their bills in the time of the lockdown. Because even if you are working, you have money to pay. But I definitely sure say the bills, they will become escalated like I don't know. Because I know municipalities, the way they escalate money to the people. What will happen to the people who want to pay, but the municipality officers are closed? They don't know where to go, but they are intended to pay. What will happen on that? I'm asking to the department, because it's the issue that it will come up after the level 2, level 1 in lockdown, because the municipalities, they want money in these billions. On top of these billions, I'm telling you, Ted, they will come up and want money from the people who are staying at home, who are not even, how can they do enter the office because the offices are closed. I think I want the department to become clear on that, so that we will tell people as public representatives what will happen about their bills. Also, Chair, let me say, I'm taking the presentation from the department. It's very clear. If it will be like this, the way they are writing in the paper, it's very clear. I think we will see. Chairperson, we are just looking it, but we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaba. Honorable Karen Fester.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've also got instability of signal where I am at the moment, so I'm not going to switch on my camera. I just want to ask the Minister that the municipalities under intervention, where intervention failed to establish improved governance and further regression of the administration due to failure of the administrator's team, what is the Minister going to do about the situation, since the financial capacity of those municipalities are now in such a state They cannot provide electricity, water, or remove sewer from these towns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Becky Hadebe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. I think most of the questions that I wanted to pose have been already asked. So I'll only focus on one, which is on program 3, slide 11, where the DG indicated that they are planning to achieve 80% of functionality of MPACs and audit committee. Now, Honorable Chair, it's a non-negotiable. I am not comfortable with us setting a target of 80% on an issue that is negotiable. All municipalities ought to have functional MPACs and audit committees. So the question would be, why can't the department target 100%? Is it too much to ask? Why 80%? I'd like to get an understanding and a rationale behind the target of 80%. As I've indicated, this is non-negotiable. It's a must. So we cannot allow or seem to be accepting the fact that others won't have functional municipalities. I mean, impact and audit committees. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Becky Hadebe. Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I'd like to greet the Minister and the Deputy Minister, as well as the CEO, who we can really feel is a breath of fresh air at our meetings. Honorable Chair, 107 billion rand is quite a lot of money. And I wanted to know if it is also part of the mandate of this portfolio committee to ensure that that money is not looted. I'll tell you why I asked the question, Honorable Chair. The Zondo Commission has fingered the portfolio committees for not doing proper oversight. That's why during the last 5 parliaments, in spite of their best endeavors, there has been a lot of looting. I want to have the assurance and peace of mind that the 6th Parliament, and particularly this portfolio committee, will not be accused by another Deputy Chief Justice that we were fast asleep and allowed all the looting. I know honourable members have referred to the monitoring and evaluation committees, but I think the buck stops at the portfolio committee, and I would like to hear whether they feel it is their mandate to ensure that that 107 billion rand, that part or most of it is not going to be looted. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Honourable, thank you very much, Honourable Hendricks. Honourable Sileku. Isaac Sileku.
Good evening, Chair. Chair,
Good evening.
I want to go to program 3 and let's deal firstly with indicator 3.6. Chair, if you understand that there is one municipality where their indigent percentage is standing at 53%. So it tells you that 47% of the residents of that particular municipality are struggling to pay their services. And as much as I welcome a drive or a campaign from the department to go out and encourage people to pay, but when it comes to rural areas, there are legitimate reasons as to why they are not able to pay for their accounts. So what I would like to know from the department, what assistance are they going to give to such municipalities that has been standing with 53 indigent population before COVID-19, so that they can actually change it around and have more people paying than more people being subsidized by the government post.
Your line is very terrible.
That is my first question. And Chair, let us go to the.
Honorable Sile, can you repeat that?
Always the case.
The last part, just the last part. It was very terrible.
I just wanted to know what is the department going to do differently to make sure that the municipalities that are currently standing on 53% indigent population, that they turn it around and that there is more people paying post COVID-19, because they've been struggling before COVID-19. And it's logic that after COVID-19, there is a possibility that those percentages can actually rise to 60%, and those municipalities are going to be unsustainable going forward. Did you hear me, Chair?
Very well.
Or Chair, let us go on the issue of MPEG. Chair, what is worrisome in local government that I feel that the Department of COGTA does not understand? You know, we always have negative audit outcomes. And the reason for that is because these municipalities are not properly capacitated when it comes to audit committees and MPEG committees. So what I would like to know from the department, how do they define a functional audit committee or a functional MPEG committee? Because if these MPEG committees have been functional, then the state of local government would have been different as what we have seen as per the AG outcomes. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Those are the questions, Honorable Ministers, and then the comments as well. Over to you. And the DG.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, just hang on a bit, Honorable Minister. Who's that? Who's that? Who's just interrupted the minister? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. There is a team from COGTA here. They will start answering, and then I'll come towards the end. We'll start with Minister DTG Fosi, since the first question was on district development model.
Okay.
Thank you. And he can take all the questions that relate to his area. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And good evening, Chairperson and honorable members. The question that I will deal with, Chairperson, is on the district model. Firstly, just to say that the district model it's a practical expression of the constitutional obligation that is placed on all the three spheres to work in an integrated and coordinated way to improve conditions at municipal level. And this model, it draws from various initiatives that were tried previously, from the integrated rural development program, the urban renewal, the Sukuma Sakes, different sort of initiatives that have been taken by various provinces. But it's meant to be a practical expression of how these three spheres can address challenges of silos, of duplication and fragmentation in how the three spheres work together. The question, Chair, relates to what is there a clear definition of the one plan? And I want to start by saying, Chair, because it was asked in relation to other legislative provision that was planning provisions. So the one plan, it cannot and does not replace any existing prescribed developmental planning requirements. So the one plan is not going to, for example, take away the IDPs and the SDBs of municipalities. It's not going to take away the APPs of national and provincial departments. They will still be responsible for planning as different spheres as municipalities. But what the one plan does, Chair, it's an expression of the investment and commitment of all these three spheres must be expressed in this one plan in terms of their investments and their developmental programs. And the one plan, by its design, it's meant to express a long-term view of planning, so that as the three spheres, we can have a long-term view of how we want to turn around and develop the various district spaces, the 52 district spaces. And then we do have a template, Chair, that defines what should go into a one plan. And that one plan will provide us with an ability to have a long-term plan that respond to the socio-economic challenges of these areas, look at the economic positioning, the spatial restructuring, the infrastructure challenges, issues of governance and management at the municipal level, but also integrated service provision by all the three spheres. So it provides a framework of how the investments of the three spheres must respond to the practical realities and challenges, needs and aspirations of the people on the ground. And that's what the one plan we will be doing, Chair. We do have a clear template of what a one plan should cover. It's part of the concept note that we have developed. The pilots, there is a diagnostic report that looked at the lessons from the pilots, which confirms some of the challenges that the district model development model is actually trying to address. Challenges of duplication and misalignment of plans of the various spheres. And the one plan, so these lessons, Chair, will give us an ability now as we develop the one plans to address how the integration and the alignment of the various plans are integrated in a way that they respond to the challenges on the ground. So we will draw lessons from these the pilots. The next question was how is the department, does it have the capacity to implement the district model? The role of the department is to coordinate and ensure that we support processes that brings these three spheres together to plan, to budget and implement in a more integrated and coordinated way. So the processes that have been put in place, Chair, we are looking at building capacity in terms of establishing district hubs that will assist us with the monitoring of the implementation and also provide support to the municipalities. We will also be establishing shared services that will be providing hands-on support to assist municipalities to address some of their areas of challenges, whether it's financial management, it's service delivery in terms of engineering capacity. So all of these support measures are meant to augment the capacity of the department in terms of how it performs this role. What we have done, Chair, in terms of the next question around how is the gender-based violence going to be addressed through the district model? When the president announced this point, Chair, he said we are dealing with two pandemics. We're dealing with COVID, but we also are dealing with a pandemic of increased violence against women. And the approach is that, Chair, municipalities, each sphere, all the three spheres, when they plan, in their plans, they are expected to also express clear commitments of how they are responding to issues of gender-based violence. And in the context of the one plans that will be facilitating, we need then to ensure that all of these plans are expressed concretely, but they will be informed also by the data that comes from each area to say, this is the extent of the problem in this district. These are the issues that we need to respond to. So in the one plan, as in the same way as we'll be responding to economic, to infrastructure, in the one plan, we must also be able to say, how do we respond to challenges of gender-based violence? And that's the approach, Chair, that we'll be asking municipalities in their plans to also identify concrete interventions and measures that they'll be implementing. Chair, or the other questions on the section 139, how effective are the interventions? Generally, section 139s have proven, Chair, for a variety of reasons that they've not been able to meet the constitutional objective of this provision being a corrective measure, and due to a number of challenges. But what we are doing, Chair, we will be introducing an intergovernmental monitoring and support bill, which will provide clarity on the processes of how these interventions must be implemented, and what support measures will be put in place. In fact, the bill as it stands, it emphasizes issues of monitoring and support before it talks about intervention, because actually the bill provides that intervention must be the last resort. But we must emphasize the requirement around Section 154 support, firstly, and then the provinces, when they intervene, they must be able to also demonstrate what support they have provided to these municipalities. So intervention will be used as a last resort. But generally, there has been challenges with all the interventions, as I've indicated, in terms of how they've been applied. And in many cases, only one person has been sent to these areas, and that administrator is expected to actually turn around serious governance, financial management, service delivery challenges. And there's no dedicated support that is provided to the interventions. So the approach now is that with this bill, we'll be able to actually provide more dedicated support. And the interventions, where the interventions as part of the district model, Chair, we will be providing dedicated support to the district municipalities. So if there's challenges of financial management as part of the one plans, we must be responding to that. If there's governance issues, they must also be addressed as part of that. So some of the challenges that have been addressed through interventions will also, through the district model, be able to provide support, whether it's on infrastructure, so that we're able to deal with some of these challenges without resorting to interventions. Chair, those are the questions that relate to my area of work, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Tender. DG, continue.
Thank you. DG will continue or call whoever she wants to call. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. Perhaps.
DG, are you there?
Honorable Chairperson, perhaps if I could just respond to all the questions that relate to the allocation of the 20 billion and the measures and whether there are any measures. Allocation of the 20 billion and the measures that are in place in order to monitor the expenditure against this allocation. Maybe the first thing to say is that the allocation is based on the local government equitable share formula, and that's the part where 11 billion has then been distributed, to each of the municipalities on the basis of this formula. Within the 20 billion, there's therefore the difference between the 11 and the 20. It's 9 billion, and this is what has been repurposed from within. So, for example, the municipal infrastructure, which is a direct conditional grant, it was repurposed by 4.4 billion. Then we have the integrated urban development grant, which was repurposed by 190,000, and then the urban settlement development grant by 2.2 billion, and then the public transport network direct conditional grant at about $1 billion. And then we have the regional bulk infrastructure direct and indirect grants at about 800,000 together. And then the water services infrastructure, which is sitting at about 689,000. So all of these then go back to the 20 billion. Just in terms of the measures to actually monitor the allocation to municipalities, there is a tool that is used by each of the municipalities to report back directly to Treasury. It's a weekly consolidated report, which was established specifically to deal with COVID-19. So it's an extension of Section 71. So weekly, what then happens is everyone is then required to input their expenditure into this report, and is then consolidated, and we then have sight of that report. And to date, of that 20 billion, 3.3 billion has been spent against the budget, which was at the 10th of July this year. And then with regards to, I'd like to also then respond, on the gender-based violence question, and maybe to give some clarity around that reporting. What I think is important here is that the department has had to actually align itself, to the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. And there are a number of pillars against which we actually need to be aligned. So the one pillar in particular is the pillar 5 on economic empowerment. So if you look at the APP and the output of our APP, we have to ensure that 250,000 people are participating on the program. And what we have committed to is that we need to ensure that there's a percentage of female participants that are enrolled through this program. Then on pillar 3, when you look at the protection, safety and justice elements, what we do at the district level and through our one plan, as described by Temba, is that we look at the number of child-friendly and gender-responsive districts and how it is that they've then included this into their one plan. We will apply a similar approach on pillar 1, where we look at accountability, coordination and leadership, where we will facilitate and support gender responsiveness or planning. We've revised our IUDF implementation plan, and within that we're looking at child-friendly and gender responsive IUDF plan. Chair, when it also then comes to questions around the relief expenditure and procurement and how municipalities are also using the money and the extra effort to ensure that they are spending, I would like to ask Mr. Sigaba to perhaps respond to that. And the other question that I also would like responses to is on the CWP and the redesign on that to be taken by Dr. Siswana. But what I would like to just perhaps say is that we have just recently had our first workshop on the remodeling or the redesign of the CWP program. That's also still in progress, but we are we will not be in a position to give the full detail at this sitting, but we can actually, once we have looked at our next follow-on workshop around it, is to perhaps provide some of that detail. So I think I'd like to invite you back at that, Chairperson, and maybe just if we could start firstly with the Mbulelo, and then we will move on to Dr. Siswana. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members. When it comes to the bills for the for municipal services for the consumers who can no longer afford to pay for services, the local government equitable share actually is meant particularly for those poor households. So this additional 11 billion, the bulk of it will be actually paying towards services for people who cannot afford. But we have municipalities are actually supposed to have one-on-one discussions with people, more especially the ones that were working, because they have to demonstrate that they are no longer receiving any income for them to afford municipal services. But in the additional allocation of the 11 billion that the DG has already mentioned, the whole amount of 84 billion that is allocated, 85 billion that is allocated for the local government equitable share is meant particularly for those poor households that cannot afford. So initially the amount was 74 billion, but it was increased now to 85 billion so that we can cater for as a response to COVID for people who cannot be able to pay for their bills. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sisan?
Chairperson.
Hello?
Chairperson, it's Honorable
Yes.
Mutambi.
Yes,
There's an outcry from the IT people to say this recording is live in the channel TV, the parliamentary channel. So if the speakers, as and when they speak, can switch on their videos, especially the delegations from the department, because with members, at least Parliament has their photos as members, they can flight that. But for people like Dr. Siswana now, they must then put their videos on.
Okay, yes, put it on, and it will follow all the speakers who are going to speak. Over to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for that intervention, Honorable Mutambi.
Thank you, Chair, and honorable members, and Minister and Deputy Ministers, and colleagues. Let me maybe make a response with regard to remodeling. Maybe let me also indicate that, as the DG has said, that we have just had a workshop on this matter. However, it's critical to point out that our aim is to make sure that the program itself does become efficient going forward, make sure that there's value for money on the ground, but also we make sure that the skills that we provide to participants are the skills that they're going to use in the near future, whether they go for starting their own business or they become active in the economy. But most importantly is to make sure that this program starts working without the middleman. Those are the critical principles, but we are still discussing the matter. I think when we come and report to the portfolio committee in detail, at that point in time, we probably will have the option that will be taken, but the matter is still discussed and also be advised by our principals. The next area is the area of one honorable member asked question about our COVID response plan. It's also critical for the participants and the program itself that our participants on the ground they can also participate and assist during this time of COVID-19. So therefore, it's our duty that that the participants become active when it comes to the help that it could provide to communities and other departments. They must be able to go and clean the taxi ranks and sanitize them. They must be able to go and assist in schools. So that's how the plan came about. The other area that I think the honorable member also raised around Ngangalati Street and Northwest, where participants that they were not paid. Yes, during the month of May and now June, there has been some problems, and we communicated those problems with the participants and our provincial COGTAs. But it's important to note that all the participants were paid according to our system. But if there are any participants who feel that maybe there is a report, we would gladly happy to receive that report. Who were those participants who were not paid? But when we receive that report, it must have the name, the surname, and the ID number of the person, so that it will look at our system what has happened. It's important to note, Chair and honorable members, that as we look at this system going forward, we also want to make sure that that we also clean our system, that if there are any problems with regard to the participants, more especially those who would say that they have not been paid, we check deeper and trace what could be been a problem. So in this case, we requested that we get that information with the name, surname, and ID, so that we can deal with matter urgently. But according to our system, we've paid. Now, the last point that I just maybe to indicate is that it's around monitoring and monitoring system. Indeed, as we working on the redesigning of this model, we equally look at the system itself of the participants and making sure that we monitor everything that happens, so that as we redesign this model, our system is able to pick up the problems that we normally find in the system. But I must indicate, Chair and the honorable members, that when the time is when we are asked to come and present the CWP report in detail, we'll provide all these details. Now I'm just giving the highlights of it, but when we are requested to come before the committee, the portfolio committee, to talk about CWP, we'll provide the details of all these matters that I've raised, and those matters will be outlined and with action plans and clarity on them in all of these matters. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much for the responses. DG, you are covered. You responded to the best of your ability.
I think
questions which were asked by honorable members. Any other point that is outstanding?
Follow-up question from Kara.
Sorry, Chair. Can I respond to some of them?
Remember, we still have another presentation to make. I've taken all the hands. I just want to establish from members. If there's any member or two members who feel very strong that they need to make a follow-up, otherwise I think
Chairperson,
I hear the voice of Honorable
Chairperson.
And Honorable
Chairperson, there's a question. There's still questions to be answered.
Yeah, there is an echo behind. Honorable Minister, you're on the platform?
Yes, I was saying that there's still questions that need to be answered.
There is an echo, a very strong echo that is coming.
Chairperson, I have a follow-up question.
There are questions that still need to be answered.
Okay, yes. Proceed, Honorable Minister.
Okay, Honorable Chairperson.
Yes.
We have 3 questions that need to be responded to.
Chairperson, I have some questions to answer, to ask.
There is a terrible voice that is coming out. I don't know from where. Honorable Kenny Mutsamai, just wait a bit. We are still waiting for the other responses from the questions of honorable members. Proceed, Honorable Minister.
Sorry, Chairperson, it's the DG that's speaking.
Yes, DG.
What's that?
DG, there is a terrible sound emerging from you. Yes, it's now off. You can proceed.
Because mine is off.
Chairperson Patanda Siswana must put his mic off.
Who's about to switch off the mic? Yes. Just there. It's okay. DG, proceed.
Okay, so Chairperson, we just have 3 more questions to be responded to.
DG, the sound comes from you. The sound comes from you. Yes.
Okay, is that better, Chairperson?
Yes, it's okay now.
Okay, so the one relates to rethinking municipal finance, and the one was to do with the 80% of the impact.
The echo is continuing.
It looks like the DG is for another gadget that is on, Chair.
Yes.
It looks like the DG is for another gadget that is on.
Yes. Just check it, DG. Please. Yes, proceed. DG, proceed. It seems as if we've lost the DG. Who else picked up the 3 questions that the DG wanted to respond to?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Yes.
There is a question that was talking about rethinking municipal finance that was not addressed.
Speak to that question.
Basically, what we're looking at there is we are trying to look at the whole local government fiscal framework. How, for instance, we're looking at exploring alternative revenue sources. How, for instance, can we use grant to support borrowing for long term? Remember, the grants, for instance, now they are only allocated on a 3-year MTF sort of expenditure framework. But municipalities, sometimes they have to invest in long-term projects that are 15 to 30 years. So now we're looking at how can municipalities be able to borrow using the grants, on a long-term basis. We're also looking at the supply chain management, Chair, as municipalities are incurring all these irregular expenditures. We are trying to see now whether we cannot have transversal contracts for some of the commodities that all municipalities are using, so that you don't find a situation where in Mpumalanga you get a condi suit for 160 rand, in the Eastern Cape you get it for 360, in Northwest you get it for 400. So we're also looking at those possibilities. There's also the question of what we call pool financing, where, for instance, in some cases, municipalities have identified projects that are actually bordering on their boundaries. If you take the example of Lanseria Airport, for instance, it falls under City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, And some of the projects, they have to pool finance together to finance those projects because they are in two local government spaces. We're also looking at the sort of revenue that municipalities are losing when it comes to electricity distribution, whether there's just the reform where municipalities are able to have the licenses for electricity distribution so that they can get some of the revenue. So those are some of the sort of issues that we are talking about when we're talking to rethinking municipal finance. We do have workshops that we have planned together with National Treasury SALGA, looking at this local government fiscal framework so that we can make proposal to the budget forum that is upcoming in September. Thank you, Chair.
Any other outstanding question?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chairperson.
Wait.
Yes, Chairperson.
Any other outstanding question that was not responded to?
Yes, Chairperson. Chair.
Yes,
Chairperson.
Answer that question.
Yes, there was a question about the what does the department does on the COVID-19 corruption or fraud.
We want to see you. Show your face. Mr. Manyeli.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members and the Minister. The question was, what does the department do about the corruption-related issues towards COVID-19?
Yes.
So currently the department haven't registered any case that talks about COVID-19, and also we don't have any forensic reports that we have received from local municipalities in relation to COVID-19 investigations. But what we can say from our side, the department in relation or in collaboration with the Hawks, the Hawks have formulated the structure. The task team is investigating COVID-19 cases across all the provinces, and the department is part of the ACTT, Anti-Corruption Task Team. Hence, we got that a relationship towards the investigation of COVID-19 and getting information to advance or to inform the minister about the progress on the ground. Thanks, Chair.
Well, thank you. Those are the responses. Honorable members, we still have another presentation to follow.
Chairperson.
But without suppressing anyone. Who's that now?
Is Tau Chairperson, Head National Disaster Management Center?
Okay.
Yes. Can I come in just to address 3 questions quickly, Chairperson?
Relating to disaster?
Yes, correct, okay. Chairperson. Okay. Yes. Chairperson, there were about 4 questions raised, but I'll just group them into one. The first one was raised by Honorable Hussein. It's in regard to how do we ensure tight monitoring of expenditure by municipalities in respect of disaster grants. I think just to give assurance to honorable members, the way we deal with disaster grants matters is a value chain a system of financial management. Firstly, it starts with ensuring that municipalities submit business plans that are costed, identifying activities or items that they are going to fund. And once we have received that and we allocate money, we ensure that we inform the relevant province, but we also yes, we give them the opportunity to spend over 6 months, but they have to give us regular reports on a monthly basis in terms of how they are progressing with the spending. And should we identify any challenges, we immediately escalate
to our DG as well as the provincial leadership to intervene to ensure that funds are used for the intended purpose. And Chairperson, with regard to that aspect also, there's just a reinforcement measure in terms of the current directions that were issued by our minister on the 3rd of July, which also compel municipalities to report their expenditure to council in respect of grants spending for COVID response. So we came up with those watertight measures that should be observed. And then the next issue, Chairperson, was on the list of municipalities that have been prioritized for support in terms of disaster management planning and integration in the IDPs. I have a list, Chairperson. It's actually spread in all provinces of the country. I'll just quickly, we will actually share it, but safe to say, we have Ngaka Moridimalema in Northwest. We have Thabo Mofusanyana and Sotho in the Free State. In the Eastern Cape, we have OR Tambo. Northern Cape is Namakwa. Northern Cape again, Francis Part. Limpopo is Waterberg. KZN is eThekwini. Gauteng, City of Ekurhuleni, Mpumalanga, JS Moroka and Ngangala. And Western Cape, City of Cape Town. We have already started engaging some of these municipalities. For instance, Ekurhuleni, as well as Western Cape, City of Cape Town. We have already been engaging them on their plans, and we have given feedback to improve on their disaster management planning. The last but one issue, Chairperson, is whether municipalities provide for funding in their disaster management planning. That is one of the core elements of a disaster management plan that we always advocate for, that whatever you plan to implement must also be supported by funding arrangements. Lastly, it's on the drought funding that also goes unspent. Depending on whether the allocation will have come from water and sanitation or from agriculture, we work closely with the relevant accounting officers to make sure that there are early interventions to ensure that the funds are spent. Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members, Minister, and accounting officers. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chairperson?
Yes.
It's Hussein here.
Yes, Honorable Hussein. I was
Chair.
making a point that we have another presentation to follow, and we mustn't eat more time on that presentation because it is also quite important.
I'm also.
But
I'm
going to check with honorable members those who have a pressing question to ask.
I do.
Yes.
I do have a question from
indicated. Honorable Kaba, Honorable Khalid, Honorable Hussein, and who else? Please let us limit them. Honorable Keza, yes, in that order, please. Honorable.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, fine.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm making a follow-up, Chair, in my question. I put my question very clear, Chair. I was saying there are those people who cannot afford to pay their bills, but they try to pay little money. There are those who afford to pay, but when we are in the normal situation, but as we are in the disaster situation, all the office, let me make an example here in Midrand, where I'm residing. In Midrand, people who afford to pay, they cannot pay because the municipality offices are closed. My question is that to the department, as they are saying they are assisting municipalities, they will be assisting municipalities that they must not escalate the bills because those people, they are affording to pay, because it was not their fault to do not to pay. It was the COVID-19 disaster who made it that these officers, they must be closed. They were not given the opportunity to pay those who are voting. But I'm asking about the interest, because they used to put more interest into those who are voting. As you know, isiZulu sithi kushawa edonsayo. Ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi ngeke nibashaya edonsayo ngoba phela siku-COVID-19 ba-afford abantu ukubhadala but ikuvaliwe. Thank you.
Oh, the question is straightforward, it's very clear. It's about the interest of those people who want to pay and they cannot afford to pay because the offices are closed. Honorable Kalipi.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I'm also not satisfied because I don't think my question was answered on the Dr. Tao tried, but he is not also clear, because my understanding of today's meeting on this adjustment budget and COGTA have got more money emanating from the President's announcement of 20 billion. Yes. So now I have asked a direct question, the role of the department to make sure that there is COVID relief to those people who can't pay. Because I'm saying, Chair, people are getting huge bills. And when they go to municipalities to say that I can't afford, I have lost my job because of COVID-19. I'm a small business, embarking on a small business. I have lost my income based on COVID-19. There is no clear direction from the municipality. I'm asking at a national level, how are they going to ensure that people are not going to suffocate on the ground? Where is the coordinated plan from the national to ensure that municipalities, they don't do as they please? I even said to you, Chairperson, here, we have called other municipalities to come and present their COVID plans. No municipalities told us how are they going to intervene in terms of this relief. I need a clear answer from the national department.
Okay. Thank you very much. Honorable Hussein, follow up.
Yeah, Chairperson, may I just say that the response from the last speaker of the department leaves me extremely disappointed. And, you know, just the manner in which the points that I made was responded to tells me the level of importance that COGTA is allocating to COVID-19 relief expenditure. So the question I raised, Chairperson, just to remind COGTA, is what mechanisms are you putting in place to monitor the expenditure for COVID relief? And it's one of the indicators on the presentation. I get the response, Chairperson, about they must present a business plan and we look at it and what. Chair, let me be very clear. You submit a business plan, you say, we want to spend R1 million on masks. The department will say, yes, go ahead. What we don't know is how much they are spending on each mask. I want to give you a few examples why I am so frustrated about this situation. You see, Chair, Naledi municipality, they spend 1,200 Rand for one single dust mask. You can buy the thing for 100 Rand. Or Tambo municipality was before this portfolio committee a few days ago. They received invoices for 4.8 million Rand just to do door-to-door exercises. How is it that the municipality is able to engage a contractor for that amount of money with no oversight whatsoever from COGTA? In KZN, they spent 22 million Rand on blankets. It's 480 Rand for one blanket. They spent thermometers, 2,500 Rand on a single thermometer. There's not even batteries in that thermometer. You got Gauteng, they are already busy digging 1 million graves when they should be buying 1 million beds. Where is the oversight from COGTA, who is the lead department to manage this money as far as the disaster relief measures are concerned? This is the question that I'm trying to ask, and I'm trying to get an answer from COGTA. It can't be right that you say to us, no, they send us a business plan, we look at it and we approve. It's not good enough. Because when the money is spent, it's gone. There's no preventative measures from COGTA to make sure that this money is spent properly. There are people in municipalities who are using the opportunity to line their own pockets, and COGTA is sitting back and saying, we will investigate. And that money is gone. And the poor people on the ground are the ones who are not being protected from the virus because people are putting the money in their pockets. That money should have been used for sanitizers, for masks, and all forms of COVID relief measures. And the number of cases are increasing and increasing. Government is allocating money, but nothing's happening. And you get this response from COGTA. I'm very sorry, Chairperson. That's simply not an acceptable response. And it tells me that COGTA does not care. They'll deal with it and they'll come and explain to us afterwards about we are investigating and investigating. I'm sorry, we are tired of investigations now. It's time that COGTA does something to protect the people of our country, to protect the hard-earned money that the President announced of that 500 billion rand to mitigate against the spread of COVID-19. It's not being done by COGTA, and they are not doing their job.
Okay. In short, Honorable saying says preventative measures, early warning signs. You need to put up systems in place that are going to stop this before it is happening and before the monies are wasted. Very clear. I hope that you understood the question. Honorable Kaiser. And lastly,
thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. It's obvious that there is no clear and effective measures in place to monitor the expenditure of funds to make sure that it's spent well and there's value for money. Because had it been, Chair, the municipalities would not be in this poor state of affairs. Now, how is the department going to make sure that they have a supervision and administration commission that is going to make sure that it oversees consistently all expenditures in municipalities? Because part of the problem is that municipalities are in poor state of expenditure. That is a commonly known across the country. Number two, and lastly, Chair, I'm following up on the question that was asked by another honorable member. Are you not looking for ways in which you will lessen the amount of people who cannot pay? And what is that program called? Rather than putting billions to support indigent communities, with regards to municipalities that are situated in rural areas, what program and what intervention and what is it called? The one that will lessen the amount, the amounts that are dedicated to indigents, to take people out of that state. What is that program called? Because municipalities in rural areas are not able to generate revenue as though as their counterparts. So how do we close the gap between rural and urban municipalities? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. The last one, Honorable Mutsamai.
And myself, Chair.
Is that Honorable Mola?
Chairperson, I wanna tlhaloso e ke tholang ka ba minister la sinalisiyo e buanga di municipality tse di mo tlase ga 139 ba tla di helpa jwang, like ya ka ke bua yana mo re dulang teng ga gona metsi ga gona electricity go entswe bolwetse ba corona ba re bo affecta batho ba ileng gore go a bata go na le ditulo tseo tse batang go epile mabitla a million a meletela mabitla a million gore batho ba rona e bolwetse ba bokgono bo ba tshware ba ba tene ba ile ba suile ba epela gona mo mabitleng a milione a le ba entseng gobane ga gona motlakase ga gona dijo ga gona metsi a tšhesang le thusa yang di-municipality tse di mo tlase ga 139 tse di sa kgoneng go thusa batho ba rona.
In short, how do we help municipalities that are placed under Section 139 of the Constitution because people in those communities lack water, sanitary facilities, and electricity? The last one is Honorable Mola. Then I close.
And myself, Chair. Am I?
Okay, yes. Is that Honorable Mola? No.
Chairperson, how I feel it's
no, Honorable Mutsamai, I understand the
ke boditse ka mabitla a ba entseng a mara ga wa e bua wa utlwisisa.
Yeah, he's fine. Honorable Faith Mutambi, do you want to say something?
I've got some few questions, Chairperson.
Okay.
And I raised my hand earlier to say the other issue, it's not going to take most of our time. We just want to table something on the next item. So the issue that one wanted to raise, Chairperson, it's around program 4. You know that all of us, we agree now in the situation where we are in now. The National Disaster Management Center is the nerve center of the national response to the COVID-19. One will adjustment, including increased allocation to the disaster relief grant. Instead, when you look at your slides here, there is a down from 511 billion. Why did this down? Other aspects here that I want to raise with regard to the if you check on slide 20 with regard to the municipal infrastructure grant. Then this special adjustment budget, it also identifies MIG as one of the conditional grants which government is grants COVID-19 intervention. And then when you read this, you note that this MIG reprioritization, it aims to provide water to households and sanitize public transport facilities in municipalities that do not receive the public transport network grant. And then prioritize MIG funds amount to 4.4 billion, which reduces the February allocation of 14.6 billion to approximately 10.2 billion. National Treasury Supplementary 2020 budget review states this. And then why then is the slide 20 presentation then shows something different like what you say? Because if you are to look at this slide on conditional grant, this slide 20 of the department's presentation is showing no adjustment at all to make. So those are the issues, because the other issue, if you have to also look here on the integrated urban development grant, same here on slide 20. You look at it under program 2. How is it possible then that the repurposing and reprioritization of conditional grants then didn't affect this integrated urban development grant? From which sub-program then did this 6.4 million adjustment come from? Those are the questions once one need clarity from the team. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Minister, can you just facilitate that for us? And the
yeah, I think the DG must start, and then the team will talk, and then Deputy Minister Dow and myself.
Okay, fine. In that order. DG?
Good evening again, Honorable Chairperson, I think the key question that I also just wanted to respond to, but my network had dropped, was just to do with whether the department had funding for the IEC or for the elections. I just wanted to confirm that that budget actually sits with the IEC itself. And then I thought I could then just ask that the CFO responds to the question that was asked around the special adjustment budget on MEG and the Integrated Urban Development Grant. And then the question as it would relate to the COVID relief and the mechanisms that we use to actually monitor that. It's my understanding that the provinces would provide for us a business plan, and in that business plan, they would stipulate exactly what the disaster grant would be required for and what the money would be needed to expend on. And out of that process, what we then do as a department, we ensure that for every expense that they would then provide us with evidence of that expense. And as they then draw down on the funds, we will only provide for the next tranche of funds based on what had been expensed with evidence that would be provided to us. Just with regards to the oversight from COGTA on all expenditure, just in relation to the view that, COGTA should also be ensuring that we do protect our people on the ground, especially with the spread of the COVID-19. I don't believe the department actually has all the mechanisms in place at this particular point in time. Safe to say that we are engaging National Treasury to assist us with the tool that is currently being used for the budgeted amount, the provisioned amount for the 20 billion. Chair, and I suppose I would actually then also like the response possibly then on the affordability of people and their bills, within the COVID pandemic. Some of the elements that have been raised, I am also of the view do belong, or they actually do reside in other departments such as social development. But we are also happy then, just in terms of our response, to actually coordinate with those departments to have a better view of understanding of what is actually being done around their portfolios. And Chairperson, I think there was another question just around the municipalities that are being reprioritized, but I also just missed the actual question on that. I had a drop in my network, and we just had one more question to also respond to on the impact. And I thought Kevin could actually then respond on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Other officials? Kevin?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, honorable members. Let me respond to two issues. The one being the questions, I think it was raised by three members around the Municipal Public Accounts Committees, the impacts. And I want to also say one or two things around the project around local government elections. So the issue around impacts, I want to respond to it in three ways. Firstly, to say that impacts are presently committees that are established in terms of Section 79 of the Structures Act. So the department has, through various interactions with stakeholders, saw a need to actually legislate for this. And through the amendments in the structures bill, we've now made it mandatory for all municipalities to must have an impact. Chair Dodovo, you'd recall that in February this year, we came to your committee and presented the bill to yourselves. So that's the first intervention that we're making. The second intervention we've made, and this is in collaboration with National Treasury and SALGA, where we've developed a toolkit or a manual in simple language that we've been using, rolling out on a demand basis to municipalities, where we actually workshop councillors in terms of how they should perform their functions. Now that is building up to the third issue, Chair, around this matter, where we're trying to make impacts more functional. But a very important intervention that we've included in the legislation now is that all impact reports, once processed or seen or tabled or provided to the Speaker, must be tabled in the next meeting of the Municipal Council. So what happens presently, Chair, is that in some instances, you get the impact reports being processed, but parked for various reasons and not taken to the council. So we've now made it mandatory that these impact reports are tabled in council and recommendations there implemented. With regards to the numbers that we have there, Chair, we moved from, or we departed from the 67% that the AG picked up around the 220 municipalities that were found to be functional. And soberly we said, okay, let's move in a staggered fashion, ultimately getting to the 100% in the outer years. But obviously we take the point made by Honorable Adeba that, this is not negotiable and we should strive for moving towards 100% from the outset. It is something that we will review, Chair, as we finalize the issues around the impact in the APP. The issue around local government elections, Chair, and we've indicated in the APP that we want to support preparations for this process. Let me say that there's 4 major stakeholders around preparations for the elections. Firstly, COGTA. Secondly, the MDB. Thirdly, the IEC. And then fourthly, where it all happens in the municipalities. Now, COGTA actually kickstarts the entire process around preparing for elections. How? The minister is required in terms of the law to publish a formula that determines the number of councillors, a formula that MECs use to determine the number of councillors for each and every municipality that we have. Minister did that last year on the 5th of July. MECs subsequently determined the number of councillors, and once that was done, the second stakeholder, the MDB, went about their work in delimiting wards for each and every local and metropolitan municipalities. That work is ongoing, Chair, and once that is done, the third stakeholder would come on board, which is the IEC, and then start preparing for the elections itself. And what they would do, 2 major things, is actually deal with issues around finalizing boundaries for voting stations, and then also dealing with voter registration matters. The fourth stakeholder, as you would know, Chair, would be our municipalities, where it all happens. And our municipalities are engaged at that point to see how they assist in the process around providing infrastructure, municipal facilities, etc. So thank you, Chair. Perhaps the last point around that is that in last year as well, as soon as Minister came in, we had gone to Cabinet and got approval from Cabinet to establish an IMC, as well as a technical committee to support that IMC. The technical committee has met twice already, Chair, preparing or just trying to get a handle around the preparations and what the various stakeholders are doing in this regard. And as we get closer to elections, we will meet more frequently to ensure that preparations are in place as we near the elections. So those little words, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Who's next? Honorable Tau?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, honorable members, colleagues, just a few comments. Chair, please note that we're expecting to lose electricity in the next 8 minutes. So I'll also try and be quick, but just in case it happens earlier, I'm likely to be disrupted for a moment or so.
Me too.
Unfortunately, Chair. I thought it's important to comment on the 20 billion rand allocation. Now, the President made a commitment that 20 billion rand would be allocated to local government as part of the COVID response intervention. In that speech, the President also indicated that, at least between the President and the Minister of Finance, I stand to be corrected, but there was an indication that the source of these resources is going to be one additional money to reprioritization of budgets. So many departments, in fact, all of departments and all government entities were requested to contribute through a reduction of their own budget. So there was a top slicing of some sort of the budgets of departments. And then in other programs, there was a reprioritization. Now I'm raising this because when you're dealing with the 11 billion, it is the 11 billion that is identified as part of the 20 billion. There isn't a reduction of the 20 billion. The 11 billion is identified for disbursement through equitable share. Now, because it is through equitable share, this is money that we use a similar formula that is utilized in terms of the equitable share formula, where it would be biased towards poorer municipalities where there are greater number of informal settlements, greater numbers of people that are indigent. So the formula is utilized to determine how equitably these resources are dispersed to all the municipalities in the country using the formula. The second component is about looking at the grants. So 11 billion is going through the equitable share formula, and the 9 billion is now looking at the grant system and saying, how do we repurpose and reprioritize the grants to ensure that they are able to respond to the COVID? In essence, that brings you to the entire 20 billion that was committed to. So the money has not changed. It is about the source of the money that clarity is being provided to say the 9 billion is going to be dispersed in a particular way. Now that 20 billion that we're talking about is to the exclusion of the earlier commitments that were made that were reported to committee and parliament about. And that had to do with the allocation of the municipal disaster relief grant. We indicated that that would be also utilizing the equitable share formula, and that was already done. It was about the reprioritization and repurposing of the MIC grant, and to the extent that it would also allow for rollover under particular circumstances. That has been done. So that is not calculated within this allocation. It is part of what came through the MIC allocation that had already been done, where we went to Treasury and requested that one, it should be repurposed, or at least a component of it should be repurposed, and that we should allow for rollover. So that is additional money that is being spoken about, in utilizing, of course, the MIC criteria and principles. So I thought it's also important to clarify that, so that when we look at it and we say which sources, and this is where Honorable Hussein, there might have been at this juncture in understanding between, I think, the respondent and yourself. Because as soon as you say what happens to accountability of the disaster relief grant from the perspective of the Disaster Management Center, There is about the 360 odd million that had already been allocated. So the response was dealing with that particular component of accountability. There is the broader component of accountability that the DG clarified in her earlier response, where she said, we've now introduced additional mechanisms of reporting so that on a weekly basis we get updates so that we keep a closer eye to how municipalities are going to utilize and disperse, in particular the grant or the resources that have been allocated to respond to COVID. So that particular process has been put in place. Of course, it also requires that we keep a closer eye to the Section 71 reports. In terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act, municipalities are required to report on a monthly basis to Treasury on expenditure. So, and the performance of the expenditure. So we would also have to look much more closely to the Section 71 reports in areas where there could have been gaps that are outside the interventions that have currently been put in place to respond to some of the challenges. I thought it's important to state that because in that way I'm responding to both the resources but also mechanisms of monitoring. The last point I thought I should make relates to the point of municipal bills and payment of municipal bills. Municipalities, in terms of the national framework, have indigent policies, through which policies they are able to then disperse resources, either through discounts and in particular through discounts and concessions to individual households depending on affordability. The same principles remain to the extent that municipalities can respond to those particular pressure points. When people come in and they say, I've lost my job, I'm now unable to pay, please can I apply for relief in terms of the indigency relief system that the individual municipality would have adopted. To the extent that we might need additional measures, it is something that we'd have to apply our minds to. But to the extent that municipalities can provide relief, they're able to provide relief to individuals. To the extent that it is relief that is communal, that has been accommodated through the grant system. And I thought that the point around the 1 million graves has been clarified by the Gauteng government, so I'm sure it would be appropriate for them to speak, except that my understanding is they clarified that there aren't 1 million graves being dug at this point. There isn't an expectation that there would be even a requirement for those number of graves. And of course, the emphasis remains on mitigating infection rates and ensuring that we limit the number of people that are exposed and then deal with hospitalization. So from that point of view, I thought that that matter had been clarified and the alarm that it had been created has been somewhat clarified. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Faith Mutambi, if I experience the problems of load shedding, you must continue to chair the meeting. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I thought the DG said the CFO, but I think the DM has clarified the issues. I just wanted to say a bit more on the question of the, to add to what Mr. Fosi said on the question of the district development model. There was a question about whether we've done any, if there are any diagnostic reports and whether we've learned any lessons from that. I want to say in addition that yes, we've learned lessons. Some of the lessons, though I won't go into detail, but some of the lessons we've learned, for instance, if we look at OR and a bit on Waterberg, we've learned that those municipalities, most of them do not have all the requisite personnel that are needed in a municipality, especially when it comes to issues like infrastructure, engineers, and so on. But also, in some of them, also they don't have a proper finance people that can. So a basket of expertise that they do not have. Planning, for instance, is one of the areas that is missing. And when we look at their LEDs, we find that they are not really functional LEDs. Sometimes there's just one person who doesn't even have staff who's supposed to be leading the LED. So there are a number of lessons that we've learned, and those lessons are informing us on what then to do. And one of the things that we have decided that we have to do, and we getting government to support that, is that we must at least have shared services in a district, even if individual municipalities cannot afford to have all the planners, the engineers, and so on, but they must be there in the district, and they can be shared with municipalities until such time that each municipality can have its own. So I'm just saying there are lessons. I'm using that as one example. The other one, maybe the last one I'll use, is that there aren't plans for economic activity, for developing economic activity in the municipalities or in the districts, even though constitutionally the municipalities are supposed to also engage in economic, making sure that there's economic activities in their municipalities. So there are lessons like that, and we are looking at then how do we, as the three spheres, address some of those issues. And then there was also a question about whether we have the capacity as COGTA to deal with this district development model. And the answer is, well, we don't have sufficient capacity. That is why, for instance, we are working with the DBSA, and we have started getting additional capacity to be able to augment the capacity we have to be able to deal with the district model. But we also working with the other departments, because the district model, as Mr. Fosi was also explaining again, is not about just COGTA, but it's about all departments who work in that district, in each district and the provinces, so that we maximize the impact on the ground. So I thought I should just add that. I know the chair says there's another item, so I won't take too much of your time. And maybe I'll just say on the issue of graves, I think it has been clarified. First, it was not COGTA, it was the MEC for Health who has clarified it. But obviously, even the entire world hasn't lost 1 million people. The entire 8 billion people. We haven't lost 1 million from the world. So clearly, we can't be planning for 1 million graves in Gauteng when the rest of the world has not lost 1 million. So I think that has been clarified. We are not planning, nobody's planning for 1 million graves, not for the country, not for Gauteng. I'll leave it at that, Chairperson, because I know you are pressed for time. Thank you.
Minister, the graves that you have allocated to people, there are people who have grave numbers.
Are those people?
Minister?
I'm saying, who are those people who have grave numbers and where did they get them from?
From the message from government, we received a message to say that you are allocated grave number 249, Mkhalipi. Your grave number is number 259.
I'm not aware of any graves that have been allocated, and COGTA has not allocated any graves to anyone. Thank you.
I also haven't been allocated a grave. I'm starting to feel left out, Minister.
Minister?
Chairperson, I've finished.
You done? Okay, colleagues, I suspect, is the chairperson still available or he has left, as he said, on the challenges? Chairperson, are you still there?
He's not chair.
On chair.
On
Colleagues,
chair.
are your questions adequately responded to, or there are still more that needs to, the last follow-ups?
Chair, it's
Chair
Brink.
was not.
Raise your hands. Tell me who you are one by one. You know how we operate.
Chair,
I hear
it's
you,
Brink.
Khalid. The next one is to Brink. Then the next person, Kaba, you were raising your hand. Is it the three of you?
No, Chair, I was not raising. I just want to clarify that the chair is left because of the load shedding.
Okay, it's fine. So let's address these outstanding two questions from the colleagues so that we can move to the next item. Khalid.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chairperson. I'm saying that no, the question that I've asked twice, there is no proper response. The DM DAO tried to respond to it, but Wangshi Jeleni. So we must be clear to this committee, Chair, because soon we are going to go and do our oversight, and poor people will be coming to this committee, to this portfolio committee. And if there's no clear explanation at this level from the national department to say that how are they going to ensure that municipalities, they have data of those people who can't afford to pay now, and what are the intervention that is done, and then how is the national department is ensuring that those interventions are taking place. So there's no clear understanding. I don't know if the department does not have or they are not planning to have. So it means that the municipalities, when receiving this COVID fund relief, they are going to spend on some other issues, and those people who have lost their jobs, those small business have lost their income, they are not going to get any intervention from municipalities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhalipi. Honorable Brink.
Chair, I just want to ask whether the minister or the DDG can make a commitment that they'll share the pilot reports on the district development model with the portfolio committee, say before the end of this week or some other reasonable time frame, so that we can also understand what decisions inform continuing with the model, and that we understand what has been achieved and what has not been achieved to better fulfill our oversight role. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Over to you, Minister, and the team.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, the DM answered the question. The DM said that in the municipalities, there are programs for indigent people who cannot pay. And it's for the people to go to the municipality to say they cannot pay for this reason or the other, and show that to the municipality. And then the municipality, where it has means to, it will then address them. But there is no money from the national in COGTA to deal with small business. There was an amount announced by the president and is being dealt with by other departments. We do not deal with the money to compensate small businesses as COGTA. And then
Sorry, Chair.
Allow the minister to come. You will follow up if there are issues. Can you allow her to finish, please, colleagues?
Oh, okay.
On the question of the lessons learned and the reports, I think that can be done, but not before the end of the week. I think we should just be given a reasonable time to do that.
Chairperson.
Yes, Keza.
Yes, Chairperson. Maybe I should then clarify what that follow up question was seeked to clarify. Chairperson, I was not asking whether the department has measures in place to get for indigent communities to get an allocation for that state. I was asking whether the department has a program to lessen the amount of people that are indigent, thus through this particular intervention, then they can then raise those rural municipalities that are not able to get revenue, to generate revenue. They can generate revenue instead of monies 85 billion that is put for indigent. You lessen the indigent, then what is the program to lessen the indigent, to take them out of the status or to the state of being indigent, so that you lessen the percentage of people that are indigent. Thus you arrive at people that are able to pay in rural municipalities. Not whether the department has indigent. Obviously it has.
Chair, can I also come in to clarify the minister? Maybe there is also a confusion in terms of the small business. With your permission, Chair.
Okay.
I'm saying, Minister, there is umama Mtambi eMatigwe, and umama Mtambi unama tenants whereby they are paying rent. But during COVID-19, ama tenants kamama Mtambi, they also lost their jobs where they were working. They can't pay Mama Mtambi in order for Mama Mtambi to pay for services, which is your water, your rates. And umama Mtambi is going to municipality yakhe yaseThekwini athi, I have lost income during this COVID-19. I don't have anything that is coming to me. So now during the lockdown, there was no bills that was also posted to my post box. As a result, I have received 20,000 water bills. Can you just have a relief for me for this 20,000? Is either we are saying that I must pay 20% and you must cut 70%, or we are saying that you must pay 50% if you can. But when they go to municipality to seek intervention, Minister, saying that I didn't have anything coming, the municipality saying, no, there is no such thing. You must make arrangement, otherwise I'm going to switch off, cut off your water. So in that aspect, Minister, not the other aspect of getting relief in order for the business to go on, is to pay services.
I agree with you, sir.
Honorable Mpumza.
I agree with
Honorable Mpumza. Mam Kize. Okay. Honorable Mpumza. Honorable Mpumza. He seems to have disappeared. Minister, over to you.
Surely, I cannot answer that question because we do not have the money in COGTA to say Umtambi should then be compensated. But the municipality is the one that must deal with that matter. I cannot say here, I would be dishonest with you if I said we have a money and a plan so that if municipality etagakwazi ukumsiza somsiza. We are dealing with that matter in a more general way because there are meetings in departments to just see how that matter can be dealt with because some people have actually taken government to court that they want not their services to be cut. No, they don't want to be evicted from housing if they're not paying rent. So that matter that the government is looking at as a whole, not COGTA alone. We are looking at that matter. It's in court, and government will come up with whatever to come up with. It's going to be quite a number of people who will be in that situation. So we didn't want to fight the matter in court. We said, okay, let's come and all the departments affected, whether it's human settlement, whether it's water, whether it's social development, whether it's DTI, because they're talking about credit bureau as well. So that matter is being addressed government-wide to see what the solution could be. So I can't go beyond that. And then on the other question about how do we get people out of being indigent, part of what I said earlier when I was talking about the district model was that one of the lessons we learned was that most municipalities they have LEDs by name, because it's the LEDs that should have programs that can actually assist communities and get people to get jobs and so on. That's one of the things we've learned in the pilots is that, especially the two pilots, is that they have LEDs by name. So one of the things that we want to do is to try and do precisely that, to work with the municipalities, with the districts, and bring other departments to create economic activities in the areas. It was for that reason, for instance, that we went to agriculture just before COVID. Unfortunately, COVID intervened, and we got 1,000 kids to be trained in agriculture so that they could go back and work in agriculture and come out of indigence. Of course, that program had started in January, but it was halted when COVID came because the schools closed where they were training, but it will continue as soon as it is possible. But there are other programs that we will be doing, but also other departments have to be involved. So that's how we are hoping that a lot of people can come out of indigency to be able to work, to earn a living. We are working with the economic cluster so that we could, and small business, so that they could form co-ops, encourage small businesses as well, and make sure that more and more people earn a living so that they don't have to be indigent. So that's the answer I can give for now. Thank you.
Chairperson. Chair Tusenia, I'm sorry. If you don't mind, I wanted to allow the other members to raise their issues. If there's still a moment, I would just like to raise one matter with the Minister, please.
Do that quickly then, so that we can table the other item. Okay.
Chair, I want to just take issue with the comments about the Minister had made with regards to the 1 million grave sites. Chair, this matter has been in the media for a while, and I know that there has been some explanation about it, but there's no question in my mind is that there has been an announcement that there was a preparation being made for 1 million grave sites. Whether or not the 1 million, there's some interference somewhere. Yeah, that's better. Whether or not those 1 million graves have already been dug up is to me irrelevant. But the fact remains is that there was a preparation for those 1 million grave sites to be dug up. And I also understand that government at the earlier stages of the pandemic were considering procuring up to 1 million body bags. That information was also in the public domain. So I think that the Minister is not being entirely open and honest with us about this issue around the 1 million grave sites. And I'd really like her to give us the absolute confidence and tell us exactly what the plans are in respect of the expectation from government side in terms of burial spaces that is being prepared in Gauteng and what her involvement in that matter is. Because her explanation, I'm afraid, does not satisfy the information that's already in the public domain. Perhaps they haven't completed the 1 million grave sites, but there was definitely a plan to do so.
Musa has been troubling us that the former chair didn't point at him. I think he's now connected. Honorable Mpumza, I see him is on the screen here. Honorable Mpumza.
Chair.
Yes, proceed. We can hear you properly. Proceed. Yeah, unmute your mic, Honorable Mpumza. Your mic is muted.
I'm going to respond again now.
Honorable Mpumza.
Yes, Chair.
Mpumza, can you unmute your mic? Yes, speak. The platform is yours. You have muted your mic again. Honorable Mpumza. Your mic is on mute. We can't hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Sir. Thank you for welcoming me that late. Yeah, for recognizing me. Chair, my focus was on program 1 on the revised adjustment of 50.7 million, 54.7 million into 54, with the suspension of 787,000 for COVID-19 purposes. Then my question was that is this 787,000 adequate enough as a response to COVID-19? Secondly, Chair, I could see that again the COVID-19 post-economic recovery for local governments aligned to the district development model and one plan, which to me is a good plan. Understanding that a local government is closest to where the people work and live. It is of vital importance that the local government here must perform effectively and consistently. Now my question would be, if you look at the indicator on 2.5, on the same issue of 2.5 indicator relates to economic recovery plans implemented in 52 district sites. And my question is that will this model not suffocate, particularly that the focus is aligned to the district development model? We understand that the district development model is trying to address the weaknesses in local government by bringing in integrated planning, coordination, and budgeting by all levels of government. Will this approach not suffocate the economies of local municipalities? Or are these economic recovery plans that are coordinated at district level being informed by the local economic plans of the district municipality, where matters matter most in a ward? Chair, I could also notice that the department has actually planned for the championing of a national response citizen campaign. This indicator has long been overdue, but also I think it should be expanded because as part of the 7 priorities, the building of united and cohesive societies requires that this should not only focus on ensuring that municipalities would actually improve their culture of paying for services. This was also expanded towards actually encouraging the citizenry being involved in full participating in the local democracy and in making sure that also citizenry are also become involved in community building and development. And then it would be captured in that way. In this sense, it would be narrow. It should have been brought in that space so that as we deepen democracy, we ensure that these matters are taken into account. Chair, I think also again, the issue of establishment of the Community Works Program cooperatives may be arising out of the way how this program, the last 4 billion, has been managed. Given that there were no systems, no nothing to manage this money through the middlemen, the implementing agents. We would be welcoming this issue of cooperatives, given that such cooperatives would have to be trained in record management and would have to be rigorously trained in reporting so that in the end, there is value for money. Because this program is very important to ensure that the poor and the destitute are actually not left there to fend for themselves, that they are covered. So we welcome it, but also it must be ensured that management principles must be applied fully to ensure that these billions, there is value for money for being spent in fighting poverty and unemployment. My last share would relate to the support to municipalities. Particularly, looking at developing the equitable share grant to municipalities is of importance, and we hope that the department indeed would actually develop this so that in the end, the ratio of allocation to municipalities is actually maximized to ensure that development takes place. Thanks, Chair.
you so much, Honorable Mpumza. Minister, over to you and team.
I think the team will answer. Maybe Honorable Mpumza wasn't connected when some of these issues were raised about CWP and so on. The team will take them. Thank you.
Chair, I raised the question to the minister about the grave sites. Can she please answer it?
No, she will do that. She wanted first to, I was going to remind her it's on my list here. She wanted the colleagues to deal with the matters of Honorable Mpumza.
Yes, I have not forgotten. I will answer. Thank you.
Yes. Tim?
Thank you, Chairperson. Temba will respond on Honorable Mpumza's matters. Thank you.
Thanks, DG.
Okay, Mr. Fossey.
Thanks, Chairperson. The issue that is raised by the Honourable Member Chair, whether economic recovery plans, are they not going to suffocate municipalities? I think in the context of the district development model, the issue of economic recovery becomes very critical, particularly now looking at also the impact of COVID that it would have had on the communities in terms of increased levels of poverty, unemployment. So economic recovery becomes one of the critical interventions that we intend to implement as part of the one plans at a municipal level. So if I can make examples, if one of the lessons that we have drawn from the pilots, we've identified that some of these districts have a huge potential that is untapped. Agriculture, tourism, with OR Tambo, the oceans economy. But if you look at also agriculture and tourism in Waterberg, I mean, if you take agriculture, contributes about 2% to the GDP of the district in OR Tambo, with all the huge potential that it has. So in the context of the one plan, it is basically to look at then how do you unlock that potential so that it creates more job opportunities, but it stimulates local economies of those areas, because those are your key anchor economic drivers in that district. But beyond this, Chair, we're also looking at community-based economic development initiatives that will deal with the issues that the minister raised. How do you create, empower communities to establish co-ops, small businesses, issues of labor-intensive interventions in terms of infrastructure delivery. And all of these are part of the economic recovery plans, because we need to create sustainable economic activities in these areas, whilst looking at the key sort of macro economic drivers, but also looking more narrow in terms of at a community level, in terms of empowering communities, women, the youth, to give them more skills and job opportunities. So those are some of the interventions that will be coming with the economic recovery. So it is one of the critical interventions, Chair. Thank you very much.
So on the CWP matters raised by Honorable Mpumza. Is Dr. Swana still there?
Hello, Chair. Sorry, Chair. I was trying to connect.
There was the issue that Honorable Mpumza raised on the CWP.
Yes, I think the issue was about, I think the comment about cooperatives and the efficiency. Yes. I think it was just a comment on the efficiency of going forward with regard to cooperatives. But I think we take the point, and when we report fully about the CWP and the plan going forward, we'll get into details in regard to that matter. But we welcome the comment on that.
How ready are you going to be? Because we dealt with this matter when we were doing with the budget. Are you ready? Can we call you anytime now? Dr. Susana?
Chair, no, we can report maybe in at the end of this month.
Okay, thank you for that. You stick to that commitment. Minister?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say to Honorable Hussein, through you, Chair, that first of all, that matter was not raised by COGTA. It was raised by the MEC for Health. Secondly, let me say, when I heard it myself, I was a bit taken aback. I called the COGTA MEC and said, have they discussed this thing in Gauteng? And he said no. He will check with the MEC for Health what happened, what is going on. And he came back to me and said, no, the MEC for Health says he was responding to a specific question that he was asked. So I just feel it's not fair that I should now answer for the MEC for Health. But when I heard it, I did take initiative and we issued a statement. I'm just going to try and find it now. On that matter at that time, because we felt that, in fact, even out there, the people were outraged or worried that Gauteng was planning for 1 million crates. Whilst you're tabling this other matter, I will try and find the statement that we issued, because I don't like what Honorable Hussein says, to say I'm not, I don't know what term he used, I'm not being what. I was just saying exactly what I said even at the time, that not even the world has had 1 million deaths. So Gauteng alone cannot be planning for 1 million graves. And we have to do everything to try and avoid a lot of deaths in this country. Of course, we can't avoid deaths completely, but we are doing everything we can to try and minimize the death. So there is no way we could have said and planned that Gauteng must have 1 million graves. If 1 million body bags were bought, I don't know. I'm not responsible for departments that buy body bags. I have no idea whether Gauteng did buy 1 million body bags or whether South Africa, the health department, did buy 1 million body bags. I don't know. I cannot answer for that. I just don't know. But if Honorable Hussein knows that the Department of Health of Gauteng bought 1 million body bags, I think that question must be directed to them. Thank you.
Okay. I think that adequately addresses the concerns of Honorable Hussein. Also, Honorable Hussein, we've agreed we're going to call the 3 provinces. We've done with the Western Cape, we've done where the Eastern Cape is coming, and Gauteng should be next. And as the Minister has said that she will also share with us the statement that she has issued where she raised their concerns. So I think the matter then remains adequately addressed, and then we can reserve all these other questions to the Gauteng provincial government. I think we have covered almost everybody who had questions on this matter. That means us to close on this matter of the department adjustment budget. I should think that also Honorable Mutsamai, the Minister on the issue of the graves, he has also adequately answered you, and then you will be more than welcome to come and join us. We'll alert you when we are meeting with the Gauteng government to account to us when it comes to this issue of the body base and this million graves that they are alleged to have been planning for them. So I think then let's close this matter, and then we consider having considered the department's adjusted budget. The next item that it won't take time for us because we have already even exceeded our allocated time. It's this issue of the bill that has been brought to our attention by the department. You'll recall in our previous meeting when dealing with this matter, we said the department must then provide us with the socio-economic impact assessment report. Indeed, the report has been submitted to us. The report has been submitted to us. We are having it here at our disposal. But then there was a letter that was written to us by the DG post our meeting on the 8th. That is tabled. I want to table it formally to the committee meeting. It's signed by the DG on the 8th of July 2020. And then it talks about the resubmission of the socio-economic impact assessment systems sign-off certificate, as well as the implication thereof. I believe the colleagues could have read the letter as submitted. Then if one reads this letter, unless I'm subject to correction, colleagues, what the letter actually says, it wants us to postpone this bill into a new particular consultation process. And then when I read it, it has been my reading, colleagues, that this proposal is maybe then informed by the substantial amendments we've been raising, such as standing limitation to all municipal employees, etc. But then we'll need clarity, because my view was that if indeed that is the reason, I should think then maybe this is the right route to follow, because it will therefore then provide us an opportunity to outline as a committee, to provide us an opportunity to outline what should then local government look like, more especially beyond these completed 20 years of wall-to-wall local government systems. And maybe then with this proposal that the DG is posting as regards to the comments from the presidency, it will also allow us now to review the 1998 local government white paper and its assumptions. So I thought that, but then we thought if this is the thinking, DG, that you need to clarify us, then maybe we can then accept this, and then maybe allow this bill to be subjected to this particular consultation process, as I've put it. But I will hand over to you, DG, so that you explain yourself what did you actually meant with this letter. Over to you, DG.
Good evening, Honorable Chairperson, Indeed, we have responded, in that letter, and it was based on the inputs as per the request that we had received from the committee. And yes, Chairperson, maybe just to say that, yes, this is what we wanted to propose. Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, this is what and then if you check also on page 5 of the letter, there's a proposed action plan and the milestone that the department has put in place. Can I hear the comments and the views of colleagues based on this proposal by the DG?
Chair, it's Brink.
Yes, Honorable Brink.
Chair, can the DG perhaps just explain in a little bit more detail if there is a delay to subject these further proposals to public participation, and if there's reference to the review of the white paper, what sort of a delay are we looking at here, and what effect would that have? Would this proposal have of a wholesale review on the court case and the constraints placed upon the government by the Constitutional Court ruling?
With regard to the national ruling world, trying to respond to the other issues. Where we mean that is given by the court judgment. That means the act reverts back to its original position as it was prior to the amendment the Constitutional Court then attended to. But the DG, this is my understanding and this is what we have been briefed. But you can talk to that issue.
Honorable Chairperson,
that there's no lacuna now, then the old act then kick off back again. But DG, over to you. DG, unmute your mic, DG. Everyone in? Yes. Honorable Hadebe?
No, Chair, yes, Chair, I was saying your sound, it's giving a feedback and echo, so we couldn't hear you properly.
Colleagues, can you hear me?
Now, only now.
Okay.
Better now.
Only now we are better.
Honorable Chair, are you still there?
She's frozen.
Oh, my apologies. Maybe it's the network challenge. You couldn't hear what I was explaining.
Yes, Chair.
I'm here.
On freezing.
I'm here.
Yeah, Chair, it was impossible.
I'm here, Minister. I can hear all of you. I can hear all of you. I can hear all of you. You can hear me.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear.
And maybe if the chair could repeat what she was saying about the bill.
Yes, I concur with you, Honorable Minister. Comrade Chair, please repeat what you have said. We can't hear you.
You can hear me, colleague?
We can now, but we've lost a lot of what you said and explained about the bill, Chair.
in response to what Honorable you mean in response to what Honorable Brink has raised, or you want me to start the initial presentation? Let's give up the something because I was trying to give a preamble to allow the DG to talk to the matter. Am I freezing? Honorable colleagues, can you hear me? Colleagues?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair, we hear you.
We can hear you, but we didn't hear what you said in the preamble.
Can you can hear me?
Now you are clear, Chair, but we did not hear the entire
in
preamble.
response to what Honorable Brink has raised. Audible now. Minister, am I audible?
I can hear you now.
If then yourself and Honorable, maybe you'll be. Can you hear me? Yes. My apologies. That I was trying to say there was a question raised by Honorable Brink on what happens to the Constitutional Court judgment. And then my response was that in terms of that, when we sought clarity, that issue of the Concord judgment, though we're given that because the period had elapsed, then what it meant was that the bill then revert back to where it was prior to the proposed amendment. But I said then the DG will further elaborate on that. And then, yes, because, yes, that's what I wanted to say. That you say I was just giving it as a preamble to allow the DG to present the response. DG, over to you.
Chairperson, I hope I'm audible because I'm also dropping the line a bit. Chairperson, the aim of the letter was not to delay the process. If you look at page 5 of the letter, we were only just outlining the impact of the bill as it is contained in the report that was requested by the portfolio committee. So what the action plan does, it actually just does provide for further consultation. However, with the timeline, we were wanting that timeline still to be within November, December. So just in terms of the impacts on this, we were also at the same time, Chairperson, just from a legal perspective, making sure that we provide, the explanation as would have been needed in the action plan, in the letter.
Chair. Chair.
Okay, colleagues. Yes, Honorable Brink.
Thank you, Chair. That clarifies.
Honorable Brink.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Brink.
I'm here, Chair. I hope you can hear me. I'm just going to proceed. The comments by the DG clarifies it, so we're not talking about a wholesale rehash of the entire process. We're just talking about a few extra, just to make sure that proper consultation takes place. To me, that does clarify the matter, Chairperson. But I'll allow other members to have a say.
Colleagues, who else wants to have a bite on the matter? colleagues?
Honorable Chair.
Are we fine with the presentation, with the proposal as made by the DG? Yes. Honorable Hadebe? Honorable.
No, thanks, Chair. I
Honorable
wanted,
Hadebe?
yes, I wanted the DG to expand further on further consultation so that we are on the same page. Because I recall we were emphatic and clear when the proposal were tabled for us for adoption and consideration. The question was posed whether or not we have dotted all the I's and crossed the T's, and what was presented in front of us will stand the legal scrutiny. So I would like to get a sense and exactly what she means, who should that exercise is going to take. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Chair.
Yes,
Chair,
Honorable Brink.
Sorry, Chair, this is me having a second bite at the cherry, and I agree with Honorable Hadebe. The DG needs to answer that, but also give us a bit of a clearer idea of what implications this proposal will have for the next moves of this committee. You know, does this suspend what we've been busy with? Where do we take it up again? What is the practical implication for our work as legislators if we accept what is sort of a prolonged timeline? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, DG. Those are the two concerns. Can you respond to them?
Sorry, thank you, Chairperson. If you reference page 5 and 6, it has the full explanation of the impact and the issues that have actually been raised for further clarity were issues that we were then responding to as per the request of the committee. And Chairperson, yes, it would have wider implications because we also would still need to consult with the DPME, and I think it would be good if that is also understood. Thank you, Chair.
We are covered, colleagues. Are we at the same page with the DG and everybody? Colleagues, should I say silence then means we are at par? So we can close it amongst that line that you will stick on the timelines. And then I should think so. We'll have to stick on the timelines as proposed. Then the committee section will assist us to make sure then how do we then also move forward, including the researcher given this proposed. But I should think as there's a commitment not to delay the bill, we should be at par with this. I should think.
Chair, I don't want to interrupt you, but I see there's a hand going up.
From who?
From one of the officials, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Motsalapu Ping Teboho.
Where are you seeing this hand from?
If you, sorry, Chair, if you go to the discussions part, where you can see the different participants on the group. I'm just not sure if an official wants to say something about this.
Yeah, it is the official that was presenting the bill.
The bill, she worked on the bill. Let me allow him to say something.
Thank you,
Honorable Chairperson and honorable members and Honorable Minister. I think the DG was outlining the fact that the letter was not intended to delay the process of the bill, but rather the letter was explaining the process that was undertaken by the department to engage with the presidency and also to include issues that the department raised with the presidency. And subsequent to that, the presidency then gave the certificate to say that the bill in its present form conforms with the socio-economic impact as the normal bills are supposed to go through that particular process. That was the intention of that, to explain that information that we gave to presidency for them to give us the certificate. Now on page 5, because when you look at the whole letter by the DG is requesting that the process continues so that we can reach finality of the bill to make it into law because of the challenges that we have had in local government. But now when you look at the process, maybe the misunderstanding is in relation to the issue on number 5 of the table that is there. Now that number 5, Honorable Chairperson, it is the normal process of all bills. That is after the process that this portfolio committee has undertaken, there is another process that Parliament must do that is subjecting this bill to public comment. So it is not the restarting of the whole process. Parliament has already deliberated, it's already got in touch with the stakeholders. Now Parliament is obliged by law to then get public comments. So that is why we've included it here.
The problem here, it says paragraph 5, presentation of the bill for approval to cabinet committee. You see, that's where the problem is with paragraph 5. Did you see that? To us, implication is that then maybe you've seen there's something that didn't go wrong, right? Then you want to withdraw this bill, take it back to the cabinet committee, then you will bring it as to up if you read 5 and 6. Because the process, we are mindful after this, once we have adopted that, we know we're going to send it for public participation, for public consultation. Clarify 5 and 6. You see now, that's where the things are on the net. This is central to the confusion here. It's 5 and 6. If you read paragraph 5 and 6, they talk to different things there. Brink.
Yeah, Chair, I must admit that you are a more experienced legislator than I am. I'm a newbie. So these finer things weren't picked up. My initial impression of the letter was not that the bill would have to be withdrawn and resubmitted, but that we would, that sufficient comfort has been given in terms of the impact, the socioeconomic impact study, that the changes that have been discussed here are in order. But if indeed the proposal is that the bill be withdrawn and that the process be rehashed, I think the Director General and Tebogo must just be more clear about that, because it seems to be that there's now confusion about it. Chair, in my mind, I don't think the changes that we've proposed requires for this bill to be rehashed. That doesn't make sense. What does make sense is that we finish it, we go clause by clause, we finish it, and we proceed. And, the bill goes through, as Tebogo has mentioned, and I apologize for not using his surname because my pronunciation is not very good in the dark here this late at night. That we subject the process to the ordinary public, the bill to the ordinary public participation process that lies ahead. Thanks, Chair.
Okay.
I agree, Chairperson, with Honorable Brink that the DG or the Minister must come clean and take this committee into confidence, because we just pointed out that the reason is that it's subjected to the executive. So therefore, we must know that our work that has been done already is something that they have seen as something that is wrong, or what is it? Because when it says that the executive must comment, that's why they want to halt the process. It does not clarify us in terms of our work as the committee. I fully agree with you, Chair and Honorable Brink, that the Minister and the DG must come clean with the committee and take us into confidence.
Remember, this matter, if maybe I must refresh your memories, this thing is only coming after we've asked on this socio-economic impact assessment. And then that's when then we were given a certificate and then we wanted the report. So you can see in terms of this bill timeline. So unless if they are saying they're gonna do this process parallel, like we're indicating, the issue here is around paragraph 4, 5, 5, 6, ne? Because you have complied now with this CESA certification. At the time we were considering the bill, this was not there. And then I'm glad now in terms of this timeline, you've seen the need that it had to be there because it was not there. But then, so maybe you can take us through the processes to say then 10 and 11 also. That's why we're saying, can you clarify this so that we know what we're doing? Because we wanted it to also then comply. You remember, you'll all agree this thing that this was only done now in June. And ideally, that was supposed to have been done prior to the cabinet committee having considered the bill to submit it to parliament. That was the issue central around that. So that's why to say, how do we enforce all these processes that at the end of the day, if we are to be challenged, we are not found wanting, as having followed whole due process. That was the rationale behind that. Deborah, are you going to come back or you are able to respond to those old issues now so that we see how do we move forward? In the meantime, we'll also try to get an opinion from parliamentary and state law advisor on the matter. We're going to write to them tomorrow.
Thank you, Chairperson. The process, as I've already outlined in relation to what happened prior to us introducing this bill to Parliament, and am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, and I'm saying that the process is now that that there has been some deliberations, and after also stakeholders have been consulted. The process is for the bill name, then after deliberations in the portfolio committee, that the matter will then be taken for public comment. So it is not the reissue of the whole bill. It is just to take the matter, which is the normal process, for it to go through the pub. That is in August. That is our proposed timelines. That this be subjected to public comment, and then thereafter the bill will then be taken to the NCP as it is a Section 76 bill. The whole intention was to make sure that within this calendar year, we have the bill, the parliamentary process having been completed. So that was the spirit of the letter. That is also the action plan we also gave to presidency. And on the basis of this action plan, the presidency then gave us a go-ahead and then issued a certificate. So my issue here is to explain that the process is not to take it back to the executive for it to be reintroduced into the executive, but it is for it to be introduced to for Parliament to subject it to public comment. That was the intention of us explaining this in the table and also in the letter that was written by the DG.
Parliament legal advisors, you are in our midst. And I believe this letter, I'd ask the committee secretary to sent it to you, you might have seen this, what our concern is on page 5. Are you able to chip in and tell us what needs to happen?
Good evening, ma'am.
Because these two processes on paragraph 5 and 6.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chair, I see that DG's hand is up. I don't know whether she should come before or after.
No, she will come after the parliamentary legal
Okay.
advices.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes.
I'm just reading those pages that you are referring to. Can you give me just a minute or two? Let me just go through those. Is it page 5 and 6? And then I'll get back to you. Is that okay?
No, it's page 5 if you read on the action plan, item number 5 and 6.
Yes, okay. Let me go there.
You can see that. Then maybe the DG should then, you see the thing they are saying, if you are reading it, because here the issue here, they are saying presentation of the MSA amended bill to cabinet committee. Our understanding was that this thing came from the cabinet. That's why it's here with us. For public consultation, for approval for public consultation, presentation to the portfolio committee for approval and for public. It seems this thing they're gonna run concurrently. That's the confusion, that when one resonated, then we didn't know what is going to happen. Should Mr. Jenkins, should I allow the advocate Jenkins, should I allow the DG to be saying
No, I
this?
see
Maybe
what you mean, ma'am.
You see
No,
where
ma'am,
we are.
Yes. No, ma'am. Look, if the DG, if the department, good evening, Honourable Minister as well. Sorry for that. Ma'am, if the department says that's a mistake, they can correct that. But it says cabinet committee. Yes. And I mean, that this bill is out of cabinet. That was my issue. Yes. No, this bill is out of cabinet.
That has been my issue, to say it's already out of cabinet. But now,
yeah,
given this action plan that's like this, that's where the problem lies.
Yes,
proceed, advocate.
But
yes,
thanks,
proceed.
Yes, no, thanks. Look, in any event, I can't, with due respect to the minister and the department, they can, of course, not prescribe the procedure for Parliament. Parliament is in charge of its own procedure. That's constitutional power that Parliament has. So we have the bill at this point in time. Of course, it can be withdrawn because it hasn't gone to the NCOP yet. But as it is, this bill is in Parliament. It's not before a cabinet committee. And even if it is before a cabinet committee, the cabinet committee in law cannot do anything about it. Parliament is dealing with this. The National Assembly specifically is dealing with this bill now. So to deal with that part, the confusion can be clarified. Maybe the DG wants to maybe just send a short letter to say, look, that's a mistake. It was a typographical error or something to that extent. I don't think that is such a train smash issue. The more critical thing is sufficient public consultation, because that is Parliament's constitutional obligation. Now, we've had quite some engagement with SALGA as well as other stakeholders. I don't know if there's more planned or envisaged or necessary. We need to look at the whole process. But this bill has been through a little bit of deliberations this year, before COVID-19 and during COVID-19, the lockdown as well. Yeah. But I'll speak to the committee secretaries just to get a sort of a better idea of exactly what have we done in terms of public participation in this bill, because that is also a parliamentary prerogative. It must be reasonable. That's what the Constitutional Court has said. It must be a reasonable opportunity given to people to make meaningful impact on legislation. But if I mean, the bill has been here for quite a while, we haven't received any further requests to have more public participation, but we can do that. That's our responsibility. Cabinet committee thing, ma'am, I think that's a mistake. But let's hear from the DG. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, please allow the DG, because we have I have no intention of taking the bill back to cabinet. So I think it would be better to allow the DG to clarify. Thank you.
Yes, I'm mindful of that, but this is what in her documents that she sent to us. She must do that. Like also what Advocate Jenkins is raising now. I think on our part, we've done enough public participation. Remember, we've called for public comments, for people to come and raise their presentation in Parliament. But DG, what did you mean by paragraph 5 and 6? Because that is central to the confusion. Our clarity on this matter, we wanted to check whether it has gone through the socio-economic impact assessment system. Then we came this to say, then, like by interpretation, one felt that you need to withdraw in terms of what you've put here, because one has been under the understanding that already we're at this stage 6 of your letter.
Can I speak, Chairperson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I think point number 5, Chairperson, I think we can therefore remove from the letter, because it wasn't the intention to create any confusion and for us to go back. We believe that we are at a point where we need to proceed. So we will withdraw the point number 5, Chairperson, of the letter.
Yeah, and under the circumstances, then we'll have to reschedule then the date. We'll find a date to continue with the deliberations on the bill. Then, colleagues, can I urge you now to read this socio-economic impact assessment as submitted, so that then you remember when we altered on this matter. So we'll have to reschedule this bill to continue with the bill. And then, like as proposed by Advocate Jenkins, you're gonna withdraw this letter and send us a proper letter. That's the recommendation on this matter. Then, yeah, you're gonna revise this letter, withdraw this letter that you have sent to us, DG, and then send us a proper letter with the proper steps, because that's what causes. Then when one read the letter, we thought you wanted to withdraw the bill. So that's the issue. Then let's then call it a day for tonight. Then the committee secretary. What? Who's speaking?
Hey, we're tired of this confusion, Chairperson. Hey.
Yeah, it's gonna be addressed. I think we need to find a better way to deal with this. So then we are trying to address this, don't worry. So then we'll reschedule she will send us a revised plan that talks to the issues, what needs to happen. Then we'll take it from there. I will tomorrow, colleagues, members of the committee, members of Parliament, we are having our management meetings tomorrow, same time. So we need to discuss these issues, all issues that relates to the work of the committee. The meeting gets urgent. Shireen will send you the links, members. Yes.
I'm coming to the management committee, Chairperson.
Yes, it's all of you members of Parliament. You are coming. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Minister. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Red again, Minister. Red.
Radical change, Minister. Once again. Radical change. Uphelele, Minister.
Are you going to say the matter?
Oh.
Early form, Minister.
Okay, good night.
Good night.